again with the PokeFlipz podcast, joined by my usual co-host, Catch 'em All Collectibles, Dan. And tonight we have a very special guest joining us, Gem Mint Collectors, another Nick. How are you guys doing tonight?
Doing very well. How about you, Nick?
Doing great, Nick. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Excited for another one. Always a good time.
So yeah, some of you may know Nick, Gem Mint Collectors. For those who don't, I will link in the live chat right now. I think I forgot to put it in the description, but I will put it in the description after our live stream ends. But Nick can be found on Gem Mint Collectors on Instagram, linked right there. And Nick, if you want to give like a quick overview, who you are, what you do, for anyone who may not know.
Sure. So first of all, thanks for having me on, guys. This is awesome. Always enjoyed the podcast, so to be here is an honor. But like you said, I'm Gem Mint Collectors. Most people might know me from Instagram, but I'm also on eBay, and I'm a Pokemon collector like a lot of you, and I'm also a reseller of a lot of different items, lab sealed, you name it. I'm an engineer by day, and then I do my Pokemon business at night, and then I don't get any sleep because I also work at Heritage Auctions. But my story starts in 1999, just like a lot of us, and then nostalgia was reignited about 2018, 2019, and it's been full steam ahead ever since. Here we are. So that's me.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Solid intro there. Yeah, I know. I think we met for the first time. I think it might have been Long Beach last year, Long Beach Collecticon, and then I've seen you at a bunch of Collecticons since then. Maybe it was before, because I know you've been going to a bunch of Collecticons, but it was one of the Collecticons, and always enjoy being able to talk to you. Unfortunately, with the Collecticons, it's always very busy, so there's never a good chance to talk to people. So figured this would be a good chance to talk to you and be able to have you on and hopefully have a good conversation.
Yeah, I will say we did an audio test last night. I think it was about 8. I forget if it was 8 or 9 o'clock, but we did an audio test that went about 2.5 hours long. So chat, please help us out. We kind of discovered the meaning of life. We found out how to make all the money in Pokemon last night. We might need a little bit of prompting to figure out something to talk about, because I think we mostly covered it all last night. So leave your questions in chat. I will be highlighting and asking questions to everyone as we go. If and when Nick, if you guys have topics you want to touch on, you want to steer this whatever direction you want to go, we can do that as well. And live chat can entertain themselves.
I'll bring a quick little announcement up before we get questions rolling in. Just a little shameless plug for myself. As most of you PokeFlippers know, I've talked about it before, but eBay Live, I've been doing that for about a month now. Having an awesome time with that. Really enjoying that. So any of you guys who have hopped into one of my streams, whether you're buying something or you're just hanging out, really do appreciate all of you guys for the support. And I'm actually going to be going all in with the eBay Live starting next week. I just scheduled all of my lives for next week, and the tentative schedule is going to be Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. Eastern to like 11 p.m. Eastern, and then Friday and Saturday from 9 p.m. Eastern to about midnight Eastern. So, going to be doing a lot more eBay Lives, spending a lot more time on live. Really looking forward to that. Excited for that opportunity. But at the same time, that also means the YouTube channel is pretty much dead at this point.
The one that has, the one that's been gone for a while, that's completely gone now. You're not retiring from PokeFlipz though, are you? I mean, I'm not having to find a new co-host yet, am I?
Not yet. Okay. We'll stay with PokeFlipz for a couple weeks.
I expect at least 2-week notice is like generally what's expected, given that we only post once every 2 weeks. I would hope for like a 2-episode notice at least. So yeah, let me know. Keep me informed.
I'll be sure to.
And if you're taking applications, just let me know
Yeah.
if this goes well.
We'll see where the night ends up. Yeah, I mean, Nick might have to bail midstream to just go do an eBay live, and then we'll just wrap it up and maybe have the new face of the PokeFlipz podcast.
It'd be a seamless transition. You wouldn't even have to change the first name. Perfect.
There we go.
Yeah.
It's a win-win right there.
You gotta practice your intro, because Nick, I mean, that is like a staple. That is a staple to our podcast.
Yeah, I got to trademark something. All right, back to the drawing board.
While we're on the topic, Nick, Brad G Card says, does this mean Nick will be doing buyouts at Collecticons?
I will. Wait, which one? Me or
I'm assuming
school?
old school, because the whole eBay live schedule he'll be running, he'll need some hefty inventory.
Yes, yeah, that'll be me one day. That'll be me one day. Instead of everyone looking forward to the Travis or Cloud buyout, it'll be me buying everyone out in our sections.
Yeah, Nick will have a whole section just for buying everyone out. He'll be running 10 buyouts at a time, one at each table.
Oh.
So, what Collecticon are we looking forward to now? You guys said you're going to Charlotte?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'll be in Charlotte, and then Long Beach will be the next one that I'm going to. So definitely looking forward to that one.
I'll see you at Long Beach.
That's
Maybe
a good thing to
Charlotte.
cover. Yeah, what's your what's your planned Collecticon / other schedule, if you want to let everyone know, if people want to come find you, what events do you intend to be at to round out the year, or at least the next couple of months?
Oh, man. So I'm traveling to the National. That'll be the sports card show late July in Chicago. That'll mostly be with Heritage, not Gem Mint. But after that, it's going to be Worlds in Japan. That'll be the really big one, mostly as a tourist. And then for Collecticon, it'll be Long Beach late August, then Charlotte mid-September, and then I want to say Denver's right after that, and eventually Houston. So,
So
if there's a show,
Charlotte,
I'm probably there.
Charlotte's locked.
Charlotte, I'm going to try for Charlotte, but if my body doesn't want to function by then it might be a no.
Well, hopefully we'll see you
I
there.
imagine
That'd
I'll
be cool.
very tired. That would be cool. I hear it's a beautiful city. So
3 weeks is plenty of time in between to recover and get on to the next one. I say that for you, but not for me, because I'll only be at Charlotte.
caffeine's a hell of a drug. I'll try and make it happen.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
And we just had card party too. That was a blast.
Oh yeah.
That was
I guess
sensory
before
overload.
we fully dive into the chat, because I am gonna start scanning for questions soon. Anything you want to share specifically about Card Party? Because neither Nick or I went. If we had went, this would be like the typical episode that we'd recap what we went through, what we saw.
Oh, okay. Wow. Where do I even start? So I'm sure a lot of chat went, but for those that didn't, it was 3 straight days of sensory overload. There were about 8 different rooms with a ton of different activities going on. I mean, you had the biggest influencers, the biggest content creators, you had families, basically everybody that was into Pokemon that could make it, made it. And I mean, where do I even start? You had Pikachus 8 feet tall, busting through doorways like the Kool-Aid Man, 10 at a time, and then just having dance parties in the middle of the lobby. And then you had world records being set. I mean, hats off to Pat Flynn and his team, because they put on a hell of a show. And I think the next one is going to be in Dallas. That's the rumor for next year. It's called Second Generation. So if you didn't go, I implore you, definitely go, because I think it was a lot more fun than CollectCon. It was a lot more engaging. And it was definitely more community focused. So yeah, definitely make it if you have a chance.
I would definitely like to try and go next year. I had severe FOMO last weekend looking at all the Instagram stories and seeing how much fun you guys had there. It looked like an awesome time. It looked like Pat did a really good job planning it and executing it, which was awesome to see. So I'm definitely gonna try and make it for next year. Glad I wish I had gone this year, but glad I didn't go, because this past weekend with Paldea Evolve releasing was very, very busy for me. So I would have been super stressed out if I did go. But hoping for next year.
It's gonna be harder to do events with your crazy eBay live schedule, right? I mean, you're probably gonna have to do less of the Wednesday to Monday.
Yeah. No, I'll definitely have to start having a schedule like you, where it's fly in Friday, fly home Sunday night, Monday morning. No more spending a week at each Collecticon.
Gotta tighten them up a little bit. Yeah, it's tough. It's so tough. Like it's a great problem to have, but Collecticon puts on an amazing show. Nick and I went to the Pokemon Saves the World a couple years ago. Worlds is a great event that a lot of people go to. Like, to have the problem where you don't know which amazing events to go to every year, because some people might only be able to justify going to one every few years, maybe one a year. I'm at the spot where I'm like maybe 3 to 4 a year. It's crazy how much choice we have and how many like great choices we have for events to go and just share all this with fellow collectors, flippers, investors, whatever we're doing. We're all passionate about this, and it's great to have so many events where we can share it together.
Yeah, I totally agree. That was the biggest takeaway from the weekend. Is it just showed where Pokemon is, like where its current state is. Everybody was passionate. Everybody was excited. It was overstimulating at some point, but the excitement was palpable, and I can definitely say Pokemon's in a very good place right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you guys go next year, are you guys going to be there in a vendor capacity or a spectator? Because you can vend at these.
It's so hard to say.
I think if I went, it would just be a spectator event.
Yeah. That's what I would lean towards
vending,
too.
or were you just going to hang out?
No, actually, Heritage took me there. They flew me out, and I was mostly working at the booth.
Okay. How were sales? Were they decent, or is it definitely more of a hangout event?
It's definitely more of a hangout event, especially if you're comparing it to something like a Collecticon.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely more social. But I talked to a few friends. I mean, some of the usual suspects were there. Like you said, Cloud was there. He was vending Pokemon Network, Graded Guard, Phantom Display, a few of the other bigger vendors. They said they had a good show. Sometimes you don't necessarily need to make that sale at these shows when you have that vendor booth. You just want to network to eventually make those sales later on.
That can be huge, yeah.
So it has its merits, but I definitely don't fault anybody that should be a vendor for going there as a spectator, because it's definitely catered more to, just enjoying yourself.
Mm-hmm. On that note, we actually had Lord Pokesmoke in chat wondering what you do for Heritage. So you mentioned you went like with Heritage to Card Party. What's something that you do like as part of the booth at a show like that? And then just generally, if it's something you don't want to share or can't share, that goes for any of these questions will be asked throughout the live stream. Like, share as much or as little as you want.
Sure. So I started with them about 4 months ago, and primarily I run their Instagram page and I consult for them as well. So during Card Party, my primary stuff was just going around shooting content, organizing giveaways. We gave away a PSA 10 Shadowless Pikachu. That was nice. We also hosted pack battles. We had Mr. Fuji, Swolpoke. We had Chloe, Dean. You name them, we probably had them. Gem Mint Pokemon. So we had about a dozen pack battles go down. We recorded all that. Just, getting the word out. Because Heritage has such an insane selection of stuff. And people are overwhelmed when they come to the booth. They're like, where do I even begin? So to have a friendly face there to kind of consult with them and walk them through it and show them all the stuff, that's kind of what I do.
Very nice. We've got Josh, the Green Shiz Collectibles. He had said prior in chat, it was great meeting you at Orlando Collecticon. And he's asking now, how much are you going to sell him your TMB Zapdos phone card for?
Oh, no, he knows I have that.
Yeah.
I'll sell it for $10 more than I bought it for. Tell him to message me on Instagram.
There we go. Slide into those DMs, Josh. He'll hook you up.
I'll make that cool 0.5% profit.
John wants to know, what is our hypotheses on the reasons for most of modern doing well and various modern cards doing very well, while most of vintage hasn't been able to do the same. So kind of asking us to comment on the current boom that we're in amongst just different parts of the market than we saw in 2020. Because certain things feel very 2020-esque. It's just with something completely different. I guess old school, if you want to start with your thoughts. We'll wrap around.
Boy, I was going to go first.
That's a toughie.
No, it's a wild time that we're in right now. Obviously 2020 we had a massive supply issue with modern product, and things are getting better right now, but they're still not fully ironed out. There's still definitely a supply issues right now, where distributors, you're not able to order backstock of booster boxes. Some distributors are, but the quantities are severely limited. 1, maybe 2 booster boxes of previous sets, and the price points are really high, to the point where you're almost better off just buying them on eBay if you're looking for those types of sets. So I do think that is part of it. I also think another part of it is we've already seen the boom with vintage in 2020. That was primarily WotC, EX era, mid era stuff. Modern also saw some effects from the 2020 boom, but it was primarily focused on the vintage stuff. So I think now people have kind of learned, and the focus isn't so much on the vintage anymore. It's more so on the modern. And so I guess I kind of think that because just the popularity with modern product right now. Modern is absolutely on fire right now. They're coming out some really nice cards. People are nonstop talk about modern. There doesn't seem to be as much talk about vintage stuff anymore. Most of the attention is on modern. Most people are buying modern. And so I think that's just kind of a big snowball effect. The more people that are talking about something, the more people that start buying that something. And then once pricing goes up, it just escalates even further. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
I totally agree. First of all, this is a great question, and I don't think you can answer it the right way. I think it's all speculation at this point, but I think you touched on a lot of good points. I think there is some hype. I think there is some FOMO. You know more about the English side of modern. I think I know quite a bit about the Japanese side of it, since I sell a lot of that on my eBay. And what I've noticed lately is an influx of China-based and Hong Kong-based buyers. And it makes sense because just a small percentage of that country is still millions of people. And I think they're starting where a lot of us start out when we enter the space of Pokemon, where you're just kind of in Pallet Town, and what you see around you is the most recent stuff. So the sets, the promos, all the stuff that is immediately in front of you, they're focusing on. And then it's just stacking over each other, creating this bubble, we'll call it. I had a thread on this the other day on Instagram, Trophy Kang versus Lily, and
that
was
up.
about as divided as I've ever seen Instagram. Yeah, that was ridiculous. I try to stay impartial. I don't want to badmouth anyone like vintage is better or modern is better, but that's my take. Dan, what do you think?
I've said it before in a different live stream. Maybe it was on the last episode of PokeFlipz, but there are incentives for a lot of businesses in the industry. There's just generally incentive for the newest set to be the best set ever. It's kind of an ongoing meme, especially with 151 coming out right now. But like the moderner, the better. Kind of a meme, but kind of true. Like, and I mean, you work for Heritage, eBay, all these platforms. They want the newest things to be hot. So there's definitely some kind of like push behind Pokemon for things to just always be hot, always be flowing, always be hype, FOMO, all that good stuff. That is like great for the industries around the hobby. That's part of it. But another part is like these are actually good arts. There are large portions of countries coming in that haven't apparently interacted with the hobby too much. It's crazy the amount of Japanese cards that are being sold back, like Asian manufactured cards that were sold and shipped over to the US, and now they're being graded over here and then shipped back over to the east. How sustainable it all is, I think just like 2020, there are some things that'll drop 80%. There are some things that'll 10x from here, and some things will stay flat. I think that is always true. It's such a broad hobby. There's so many things going on. Some of these cards, there's just not really a ton of copies out there. And yeah, you go card by card. Everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different release, supply, demand, equilibrium, all that. But the fundamentals and the supply side do matter. The demand is absolutely surging right now, but supply side does still matter. And some of these cards in the coming weeks, months, years, you'll see that doubling every other week, it just can't be infinitely sustainable. Something's got to give, right? And some cards will get hit harder than others. But just like Evolutions a couple years ago, just like the $1,000 Pikachu and Eevee, we were saying things were crazy at 300, 500, and then they went to 1,000. They went to 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, whatever the number. There could be a 5x or a 10x on some of these things before they drop that 50 to 80, 90%. So it's I'm just along for the ride. I'm selling what I have of it as it goes up. I would caution anybody heavily. There's been many instances where you could have bought something after it doubled for it to then double again. At some point, they stop doubling. They all stop doubling eventually, especially day by day, week by week. So just be careful out there.
Overall, though, do you think it's positive for the hobby that this is happening, that Modern's having this uproar?
I think it's good for the hobby broadly that so many people are engaging. I mean, going back to us talking about the events, how many people are just genuinely enjoying the hobby. And it's great for the people that are doing it sustainably and reasonably, that aren't doing it on credit. But underneath 2020, it was great that the hobby expanded. It was great that so many people got in. Some people got destroyed. I sold to some people who got destroyed. I sold $35,000 Shadowless PSA 9 set. I sold $1,000 EVs, $8,000 PSA 9 unlimited Charizards. Those people got wrecked. It was a zero-sum game, and all the people that had all the gains, that came out of someone else's pocket. So that doesn't feel good, but what can you do, right? At the end of the day, everyone's adults interacting with this hobby. And I mean, we come on YouTube and we talk about how we don't really think it's sustainable. We sell into it, and what more can you do? What do you think?
Not much. That's why we have to research and understand fundamentals, I think, before diving deep into something, especially at the $1,000 plus threshold.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what a lot of people are not doing. They're just following the trends of what everyone else is buying. And it's just a vicious cycle.
Yeah, it always,
We've seen it time and time again.
we talk about it a lot, but if something fundamentally is the same item and the price doubles, you should want it less than you did before the double, right? If it's fundamentally the same item and the price is higher, it should be a worse thing for you. But mentally, people just like to buy high, sell low. If and when something's heading down, sell it before it goes to zero. We just extrapolate. We look at the few last data points, and if they're pointing down, well, eventually that's going to intersect with zero. So I want to sell before it hits zero. And if the last few are up, especially if it's a doubling, well, that's a rocket ship headed to the moon. I want to buy it to go to the moon. I mean, it's scary, but that is fundamentally how our brains are wired.
Yeah. It's Warren Buffett's first rule. Don't lose money. And that's probably the best way to lose money, is to ride that wave.
We got to try to get Warren Buffett on here, because I think Warren Buffett would be a great PokeFlipz guest.
Warren would love it. Warren would love it. He'd bring his McMuffin on here and talk some sense into all of us.
McMuffin.
Tell him we got a
Whatever he
12
has
pack
for
of Coca-Colas and we got a 6-pack of Egg McMuffins for him.
I'm sure he'll jump right on.
DoorDash it from the
busy.
DoorDash it from the
older than
Omaha
every PPG
McDonald's.
combined.
Oh man.
What else we got?
I should have caught this one while we were talking about Nick's eBay Live, but Ben Lowry wanted to know, is eBay Live working with international or is it domestic only? How's that work?
It does work with international. It's the same as anything else on eBay. You
So it's
can buy stuff
ISP.
being an international buyer if the seller sets up international shipping. I ship everything through the eBay's international shipping, the old global shipping program, and eBay has still yet to offer any type of combined shipping discount for international buyers. So unfortunately, right now, you would have to pay shipping on every single item that you purchase. Now, some sellers will manually combine all of your orders into one new listing, so that way you can save on shipping. If you ever want to hop into one of my streams, I'll do that for you. But not all sellers do that.
And I think eBay Live is in its infancy. I know I'm doing some stuff with the eBay Vault. I don't know if they're considering these things like betas, but in many regards, these are kind of like beta versions. They're constantly like working on trying to streamline them more, and I'm very optimistic for the future because I think the early stages of what we've seen out of both are really promising.
Yeah, and their main competition for TCG just got bought out. So
Yeah.
it's really
Yeah.
just them and Golden, I guess, and Golden's vault or PSA's vault. I don't know who owns it. But I don't know of anybody that uses that vault unless you guys do. Please enlighten me.
I don't know.
So,
It's crazy the amount of money, the amount of like big industry titans that are just moving things around, gobbling up the competition. eBay buying TCG Player, Fanatics buying everything, and PWCC, collectors buying, Golden, and it's wild out there.
Heritage just by itself. For
Yeah,
now.
making
Actually,
moves.
someone made a sizable offer a couple of years ago, and the owners just said, "No, get out of here."
wow.
Which I respect.
You'd think
I
like
see
Fanatics
people do
and
that.
yeah, you'd think some of the same people were probably knocking on their doors.
Probably these multi-billion-dollar corporations. Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's only a matter of time
yeah,
until they gobble everybody up.
yep. Big fish getting fed.
Hmm.
Steve ETCG
Well,
says, should we expect to see Pokemon releasing more specialty sets like Pokemon 151 each year? Seems like they need to cater to two major age groups, early 30s and kids these days. It is an interesting thought, like especially go 25 years further down the line. Like as of today, we have a Pokédex of 1,000 approximately, slightly over 1,000, I think it is. How will they get enough face time for every species, right? At the end of the day, they probably just won't. They'll probably disproportionately focus on the original and the newest one. Like that goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where like the moderner, the better. The two biggest booms in all of the hobby are happening now and happened in 1999. So disproportionately, you have like the most interest in those two eras, and I think they're always gonna just be like a really distinct slant towards each end on what they're focusing on for species. But that said, I will say that there are a lot of kids, like my wife teaches, and every year she has a few kids. They have big respect for Charizard. They have big respect for Pikachu, like the faces of the 151, the faces of the broader hobby. So when they're doing Pokemon 151, when they're doing those Kanto throwbacks, it's not just for us. It is a lot for like rehashing the original thing, but a lot of the kids are really into that stuff too. What do you guys think?
I totally agree. I think the games influenced it a lot too. We saw that last year with Pokemon Legends Arceus and the Sinnoh region. So we saw a lot of love for Gen 4 in the TCG to kind of piggyback off that game. So I think it'll partially depend on that going forward as well. Nick, what about you?
I might be biased here, obviously, because I am 100% a Gen 1er through and through. But I think it is important for Pokemon to stick with their roots and go back to their roots every once in a while. Even I'll agree that maybe once a year, like we've been seeing lately, is a little bit too much. But yeah, I think they do need to go back to the original WotC era every once in a while. That's where they started. That's how they got to where they are today. The interest in WotC, there's a ton of interest in WotC. Even little kids know what a base set Charizard is, know what the base set Pikachu is, and all of that stuff. So I think it's more than our generation, but I kind of do agree they are doing a little bit too much with the 151, a little too quickly in my opinion. But I think maybe the 151 is because not solely because, but partially because of Kadabra. Kadabra's finally coming back into Pokemon, and so I guess it maybe it has nothing to do with it, but it kind of ties in well with Kadabra coming back in, reprint the whole 151. Just my thoughts on that.
Just hope they print it to demand. Or else it's going to be scalper heaven.
It is supposed to be print to demand, but it's limit 1. And I've been saying that in Discord recently. I've seen a couple people talk about that. There's a distinct difference between print to demand and print to demand limit 1. Because if it was print to demand and I could get as many as I wanted at MSRP, I would buy many, many hundreds, I would think. Like, what's MSRP of a Japanese box? Isn't it like 45,000 yen? Isn't it like $38 or something?
$38?
Yeah.
It's 38 per set.
I would put, I might just put $38,000 into it. I might just buy 1,000 boxes if I could get them. So I can only buy one. So clearly that is the difference. For me personally, the difference is hundreds of boxes, given that I can only get one instead of getting as much as I want. So print to demand is kind of not exactly what it is. Limit 1, it means, okay, anyone who wants to buy one, rip one. But it'll be interesting. Like everything else that we're following, like everything else that's developing in this space, it'll be very interesting to follow along.
It will be.
Do you think the English equivalent will be available? There won't be any issues with that, like we've seen with Japanese stuff lately?
I honestly think it will be more available than Japanese stuff. Because even the past I don't know Japanese sets whatsoever, but like the Japanese equivalent of Scarlet and Violet and Paldea Evolved, even those sets were super hard to get in Japan, and pricing on those boxes was absolutely nuts right at release. That's not the case with English booster boxes. Scarlet and Violet came out, and that one held at like 115 for a while. It's since come down. Paldea Evolved was brutal. Boxes at release were like 110. Some people on Facebook were selling cases for $600 shipped, and this is right at release. So I do think English product will be more available than Japanese. Or maybe it's just because Japanese has more demand right now.
They're trying to dump that so they can afford their allocations for 151 and Obsidian Flames.
That could be it.
Yeah, they'll dump it at a small loss to get the hot sets.
Yep.
And I don't know.
We've seen this time and time again every block.
Yeah.
I don't know if is 151 gonna be more of like a Crown Zenith that has a multi-month release, or is it all up front? I haven't even paid attention to what's coming down the pipeline for that.
Well, the English 151 will be multiple products. We're gonna get ETBs. We're gonna get booster bundles. We're gonna get a special collection
UPC,
box.
right? I think
UPC. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I was happy to hear booster bundles. That'll make breaking packs a lot easier. Opening ETBs is such a pain in the butt. There's just so much waste in those ETBs. I like opening booster boxes the most, but booster bundles will be nice because there's not as much waste in those.
Mr. Walrus has a question waiting for us. Is a modern chase Black Label the new American dream? Just one would get me out of debt, just saying. I've said it many, many times. Mr. Walrus loves to hit us with the meme questions, but from every meme question, you can actually generate like a pretty solid conversation. What are your guys' thoughts? I think we've talked about them before, but I guess we'll start with you, Gem Mint. I mean, you've got it right in the name. What are your thoughts on like this Black Label Premium? Is PSA 10 Gem Mint enough for you? Is Black Label BGS 10, is that like too much? Is it crazy what's going on with that? Or what are your thoughts?
Okay, let me proceed what I'm about to say with collect what you love.
Yeah.
If you like black labels, go ahead. More power to you. Don't let anyone influence you any other way. But yes, PSA 10s are gem mint enough for me. I think the 5 to 10x multiplier for a black label, it's undeserved a lot of the time. And I don't think it's very impressive on modern cards that are cut almost perfectly from the factory and fresh. I think if you have a WotC card with a black label, that's pretty impressive and it should command a premium. But we're seeing it with the Umbreon, for example. That's the poster child. That came out of the gate with $12,000. That was confirmed. And now it's sold for less than half. So I think there's a little too much hype behind the black label for my own comfort. I think it looks cool. I think it's the best gimmick for grading. But I also think that Beckett would be in the dumpster without it. So yeah, not the biggest fan of black labels. But to each their own. And to go back to your question, the modern American dream is to go to the grocery store without having to spend like $300 for basic needs. I think that's the American dream right now.
That is a good point right there.
Yeah.
For me, I am for modern stuff it's tough. Modern stuff I don't see the appeal of black labels. Vintage stuff, on the other hand, I do see the appeal of black labels. For me anyway, it's not the black label, but it's the CGC perfect label. I really do enjoy having my perfect 10 Squirtle. I absolutely love that card. I've talked about it before, but I really do enjoy that card. I've had PSA 10s in the past, and I don't enjoy them as much. This one's like literally a perfect copy. Even my 10s don't look as good as this one. Obviously, you're talking like a speck of this, so it's not that much of a difference there. But I do enjoy the whole going after that perfect card in some cases. Like I said, mainly for vintage over modern. I do buy into that. I'm not one of the people chasing those cards all the time, but I do buy into the whole conditional rarity thing and people paying massive premiums for conditional rarity. And I do think that that's justifiable. I think it makes sense on the super high end, like the buyers who have a lot of money, going after those cards. And I do think that it helps support and helps grow the hobby, because obviously you get those sales figures saying Umbreon just sold for $12,000. The hobby's doing so good. I just think it overall is beneficial for the hobby. Obviously not everyone can afford those cards, but the people who can, I think it just kind of helps grow the hobby and kind of legitimizes the hobby even further. You can kind of make a similar argument to just grading in general. Should grading be in Pokemon? And I think most people would agree that absolutely it should. But it's not the same argument, but it's a similar argument. What's your thoughts there?
Crystal and okay, go ahead.
So I'm sure there's data behind this, but if you took a sample size of 100 PSA 10s and you sent them back to PSA, how many of those, in your educated opinions, think would come back PSA 10? Probably the vast majority, right? Is that fair to say? If you did the same thing with black labels, how many do you think would come back black label?
That's where it does get tricky. Very few, if any.
I feel like you're paying a massive premium for somebody having a good day that day.
Something that's fairly artificial.
That subjectivity.
I need to shout it out because
that's my issue.
every time this one comes up, shout out to PFM, Pokemon Flying Master on E4. He has a YouTube channel somewhere. Years ago, he made a video on resolving power. And he talked about like the resolving power that BGS is claiming to have at that high-end scale. Basically, PSA is weighing by the pound, and BGS is trying to weigh by the atom, by like the microgram or something. And it's probably not honestly very replicable. I would even push back a little bit and say like even PSA, if you're talking PSA 10 Celebration Charizard, if you're talking a card that has 80% 10s, sure, crack 100 of those out. Most will get 10s. If you grab 100 random WotC PSA 10s, I think there are some instances where you might get 40 or 50 that end up 9s and 40 or 50, I guess 50 or 60 being 10s. So it all depends on how strong of a 10 it is, right? Because inherently ultra modern cards, Japanese cards are just stronger examples than like a lot of the WotC PSA 10s out there. But one thing I wanted to add, kind of echoing both of what you said, I agree largely with both of what you said. I understand that there is an allure to it. I understand that there will be some amount of a premium. I just never have been remotely close to being on board or at par with the market for what that multiplier is. Like, I think both of you would agree to this as well. I back in the day was a 9 collector because that's where I found like my perfect spot for value. I didn't even justify the PSA 10 premium. So clearly I'm not going to justify the Black Label premium. But everyone's got to find their sweet spot. Everyone's different. The market is just the sum of every participant in the market, right? So it's not that it's wrong. It's that certain people agree with it and certain people disagree with it. And the market is what the market is because of all of our individual thoughts. And I've always just been uncomfortable with it. So if and when I grade a Black Label, I sell it. If and when I grade a PSA 10, I generally sell it. That's all you can really do.
Yeah, I think what you value is really important. Because I've heard a lot of people say, I like the challenge of a Black Label. And if so, more power to them. But if you're looking for value in a card, then I think you have better options.
Yeah.
But another quick question for you guys. So Black Labels obviously command a premium over a PSA 10, but CGC Perfects don't. And why do you think that is?
CGC Perfects, I don't know where they don't. I think that Pristines don't, but Perfects do.
I've seen it. I've seen a few listings this year at Heritage, and PSA 10s went much higher.
Oh, then a Perfect 10?
But I guess it's situational, yeah.
I don't
be situational, but it's nowhere near the Black Label is my point.
Oh, it's nowhere near the Black Label.
Yeah, that is.
And the interesting thing with that, I've actually done some deep dives into that. Shout out to my paywall. I've done some deep dives into it. If you look at the Black Label rate, like let's pick on Scarlet Violet 1 promo, a very modern card, very high 10 rate. The PSA 10 rate is something like, I'm doing it from memory, so it's not going to be perfect, but the PSA 10 rate of that card is something like 80 or 90%. Extremely high, extremely easy to grade. The CGC 10 perfect rate is like 6%, and the BGS Black Label rate is like 25%. Black Label, that's a $500 card. CGC 10 perfect, it's like a $200 card. So one thing that feeds into that is CGC is easier to submit to. I can submit to CGC today, and I'll probably get that card back within 2 weeks. And it's a semi-reasonable submission process. BGS, you're spending more money and you have less, like, you don't know what's going on. Like, I have some cards out from 3 months ago that may come back in 3 days, may come back in 3 years. I don't know. So BGS, you kind of do have that interesting thing where they're almost such a pain to deal with that those who do are rewarded. If you, because you got to front the money too. You front the money for grading, you get the cards back months later. It's a very weird thing, but it's like those who go through the punishment, those who subject themselves to the punishment, they get that lucky grader on that lucky day and they get that Black Label. They deserve a reward, I guess, right?
Yeah. You know, the submission process always makes me laugh. They just kind of like, it's like a questionnaire. They're like, yeah, just write a paragraph about it. We'll figure it out when it gets here.
It recently did get a lot better. I will say that. Like, last Friday, I submitted one submission to each company, PSA, BGS, and CGC. And BGS's did improve a lot from what it was 4 or 5 months ago. But yeah, it's still fairly rough.
Glad they improved something after all the flack they caught.
But yeah,
April Fools.
at the end of the day, it's very
That whole
interesting.
thing was ridiculous.
It's very interesting to see that clearly people aren't just collecting card quality. There's very much like a branding. People are, like we say, buy the card, not the label. People very much value the brands, the labels, the companies behind these behind these plastic and these plastic slabs. For better or for worse, that's just what it is. And CGC just doesn't have that branding, because if you look at the data, if you look at the cards, I think it's fair to, like, it's objective. It's objectively harder to get a CGC Perfect 10 than a BGS Black Label. But the market wants the Black Label, and they're paying a lot more money for it.
I think social media has a lot of fuel to that fire too. Anytime I see a post with a Black Label on it, it's always an uproar of likes, comments, all that good stuff. It's just a hype thing to have, you know, the pizzazz of a Black Label.
It's like Supreme or something. Like it's got that, like, yeah, it's got just an inbuilt premium that it is what it is at this point. It's like, yeah, how repeatable it is it? It doesn't matter, because people just want it. How much, like, and I'm not like a connoisseur of clothes by any means. You see what I wear in these live streams. I'm wearing usually a beer shirt or a sports team shirt or a Pokemon shirt. But there are probably people out there that drive themselves crazy. Oh, Supreme t-shirts are $300, and there's this other company that makes them for $40, and they're superior in every way. And yet at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because the market spends what it spends, right? Like it can drive you crazy all day long, but at the end of the day, like, it is what it is. 5 years from now, 10, 20 years from now, eventually it might like change. If you think you have more logic on your side, if you think you have more fundamentals, whatever. And I would tend to agree that way. Like I would tend to think that like something like the Black Label Premium would have a harder time sustaining distant into the future. But who knows? I mean,
Damn it, Walrus, you got to talking about Black Labels for half an hour.
Yeah.
Yeah, way to devalue my Squirtle there, Walrus. Really appreciate that.
You got to go get that thing in a Black Label. I mean, come on.
No, that's a collector card, and as a collector, EGC is the way to go.
Until their super secret announcement in a few days.
I'm very interested to see what that is. I think somebody asked about that. Let me see if I can jump to that one.
To hear that.
Oh, did someone ask about that?
I think so. Maybe not.
Crystal, what's up, dude? How are you?
Oh yeah, so Badly Super. I did skip some questions to get this one just because it's on topic. I will go back to the others. But Badly Super said, truth spoken, BGS is trash without black labels. Question is, CGC is said to change the perfect label. Basically asking if CGC were to change their label and make the perfect 10 more stand out. Like maybe they'll just carbon copy. Maybe they'll call it an Onyx label. Maybe they'll call it a black label in a different way. But do you think CGC is a better company if they were to better distinguish, better brand their perfect label? What do you guys think?
No, I think they're a better company because they actually listen to the community. And I think that's their strongest thing.
Yeah.
No. I don't think changing a label is going to do much. I shouldn't talk about it. Go ahead, guys. NDA
What do you think?
Stuff.
What do you think, old school?
No, I do think changing the label is a net positive. I think right now the pristine label and the perfect label are just way too similar, and differentiating between those two is something that people have wanted for a very long time. So it'll it'll piss off a lot of people who already have CGC Perfect 10s without that new label. But it'll also make a lot of people happy for the future, is what I think. And it shows that CGC is here for... I think it shows that CGC is here for the collectors. It shows that CGC is willing to listen and willing to make changes. So I think it's overall a net positive. I'm super excited to hear what this news is come Monday, Tuesday, the 20th, whatever day that is. But
Tuesday, I believe.
I'm looking forward to it.
You might know sooner, Nick.
Oh boy.
Yeah, Dan and I were talking for an hour and a half last night before you came in. So, let's just say I saw Matt Quinn this weekend. And he had a few drinks. But he's a great guy. So more to your point, yeah, I think a big reason why they have their ear to the floor with collectors is because of Matt Quinn and his direction. So hats off to him and his crew.
I would agree with that. He is doing the CGC in general, but him especially, really good person to kind of help head CGC and make these good decisions moving forward.
You're gonna have a lot more people asking questions, trying to prod some things out of you now that you dropped that probably in chat. But
I can't. I'll say this: whatever you think it is, you're pretty close.
It's just
not
wish
like some earth shattering.
Yeah, we don't have to get too deep into it, but I'll just say this: like, I'm rooting for CGC. I love their case. I love the clarity of it. I've never understood the whole like ugly label, blah blah blah. Like, look at PSA's label, the way they abbreviate, the way I just, some of the ugly label hate that CGC gets when the PSA label exists the way that it does. Like, I don't think, like, both are fine. To me, both are fine. I collect the cards inside, or I used to collect the cards inside. Now I just sell the cards inside. But yeah, we'll see what it is. I hope, I'm rooting for CGC. At the end of the day, like, if I had to go back and just say what would make like the perfect company, PSA is clearly the leader far and above. People like 10s. People like big numbers. You need to give them out pretty easily, but not like too easily. It's funny because like one thing I've said over the past couple years throughout the boom, the whole like mom and pop basement grading company that was going on the past few years. If someone were to come out and identically match PSA's grading standards and just do exactly what they were doing without the half grades, to me, fundamentally, that would be the perfect grading scale. Because PSA having the half grades the way they do, it's a joke. Like, they're not actually even using them. It doesn't make sense. CGC, at least, I mean, I don't like getting them, but at least they're using them. Like, if you plot, shout out PokeMetrics, if you plot their grades, there's a normal distribution centered around like CGC 9. They're using each grade like actually in a valid way. Like 8 is higher than 7.5 is higher, you know, onwards, where PSA just willy-nilly throws out an 8.5, throws out a 7.5. But if a company were to come out and mimic that exactly and drop the half grades, like say CGC did that 2 years ago, I guarantee you people would say they grade too easily. If someone identically matched PSA's grading scale and graded 42% of Pokemon cards, the PSA, CGC 10, XYZ 10, whatever it is, people would say they grade too easily. I guarantee it. PSA grades like quite easily compared to Beckett on the high end, not on the lower ends. Like at the very high end of the scale, compare any card, apples to apples, BGS, PSA, CGC. PSA grades so easily, relative. But that's what the market wants. They want 10s. They want their cards to be perfect. 10 is a perfect grade. Beckett does have an interesting thing going where the black label is quite a bit harder to get. It does fundamentally work well. With PSA 10 rates that are like 80%, it's just kind of silly that anyone pays a premium of any kind on a card where the PSA 10 rate is 80%. I mean, I'm glad they do. It's very lucrative for business. But at the end of the day, like, does that fundamentally make any sense whatsoever? Whereas if the black label rate is 5% or 2% or 10%, you're actually getting a top 10 percentile card, theoretically. Whether or not BGS can actually be repeatable and discern the difference, resolving power, all that good stuff, that's all into question. But at least at the end of the day, theoretically, you're getting like a top 10 percentile card. Whereas PSA, with how bad historically Pokemon's printing was through WotC, through mid-eras, if you buy a PSA 10 card, for many eras of Pokemon, you are getting a top 10 percentile card. But with modern production being so much higher quality, and with Japanese production being so much higher quality, a PSA 10 just doesn't mean as much. Or at least it shouldn't, but it still does because there's still a massive premium. So it's kind of crazy, in my opinion.
So like the you were saying the premium with cards 80% 10 rates shouldn't exist. I don't think it should be a massive premium like some cards that we're seeing, but I do think there should be a premium on those types of cards. And I think our kind of circle, the people who watch PokeFlipz, the people everyone in this chat listens to and talks to on Discord and all of that stuff, we're not the majority of collectors within the Pokemon hobby. We're the vast minority of collectors in the hobby. Obviously, we're probably the most engaged. We're the most involved. We're the most in depth. Maybe we're the ones buying the most amount of cards. But there's a huge portion of the hobby who are just casual collectors, buying cards every so often. And the vast majority of people have no idea how to pre-grade cards, how to fill out a PSA submission form, how to send cards off to PSA. So I think in that regard, the premium is justified. And there always will be that type of premium. Now, a massive premium for a card like that I don't understand. But some type of premium, I think, will always be there and is justified.
Some premium, yes. I guess I should have elaborated in that there should be some kind of a premium, but certain cards, and I'm talking against my own interests, but one card I've been beating the dead horse on is like the Celebrations Charizard. Blows my mind that is like $80 raw and $250 in PSA 10 when it's so easy to just get gem mint copies, grade them, and sell them.
Well, the Moonbreon's even worse, isn't it? It's a $1,000 PSA 10 now.
But that's like 600 raw at least.
Yeah.
Like that's not a 3x or something. Like if you take the Charizard plus the grading fee, you're doubling it plus some. Whereas with the Moonbreon, I'm not trying to justify it. I sold one for $1,200 last week. I'm not trying to justify, but Moonbreon plus grading fees, you're like 80% gain instead of a 2.5 times gain or something. So there should be some premium. The plastic costs some amount. I think it's dangerous when you try to say, well, the grading is $15 on a $600 card. Adding in 15 for the grading isn't unreasonable. I mean, grading costs more than that because the bulk limit for 15 is like 200. But if you take like a $5 card and you try to say that $15 grading, it should be $20 minimum in any grade, that gets very dangerous. Amplitude and Crystal were calling Nick out on his justification for his $2,000 Squirtle. The label's not even black, Nick. Come on. He does have the color match though. He does have the blue on blue.
Yes. And thanks to Mr. Walrus, I now have a blue graded card to go along with my blue label and my blue Squirtle.
And send your Squirtle squad to Matt. Tell him to pedigree
it. What would he pedigree it as, though?
I don't know. Just ask him.
Man? That blue on blue would be nice. Yeah.
Blue on blue would be nice. Shades.
I think this one came up, Nick, when you were talking about ripping ETBs and all the waste. But Ghetto said, question. Do you think Pokemon America will ever move away from all the bulky boxes that just have a bunch of plastic and a box for just 4 to 5 booster packs? It is like mind-blowing and it's tedious and it's kind of sad when you really think about it. Like when Paldea Evolve dropped and I just get like a pallet or 2 pallets of product, and at the end of the day, at the end of the week, I have bins and bins and bins full of recycling and cardboard and so much waste. And then at the end of the day, you think how 98% of the cards just sit in monster boxes. They go into Cardinal Gaming's bulk mountain. They go into my bulk mountain. Like most people, if you distill all of that product down to what we actually want, it's pretty sickening. And then And then
Yeah.
we take that 1% of cards that we want and we send them to PSA or CGC or Beckett and we put them in plastic and they send it back to us. And then we sell them around the world and then people crack them out and they send it to another company to be regraded to try to get a higher number. The amount of like I remember a couple of years ago when crypto was doing its thing, I remember hearing some like negativity towards crypto from the Pokemon space in that it wasn't green enough or something. That was hilarious because like I can't think of a hobby less green than this. I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty rough. I wish they would, but I doubt they ever will because it's just so cheap and easy. All their machines are set up to do it the way that it's being done, and it would cost more money to scale down the sizing, right? And there's probably some amount of R&D that has gone into how big does something need to be on the shelf at Walmart, at Target to catch someone's eyes. If you make it too small and too concise, it won't catch the kid's eye 5 aisles over when he's checking out, and he can cry to his mom to get him a couple boxes. What do you guys think?
Go ahead, Nick. I'm trying to pull up a picture, card party, of the waste that you're talking about.
Oh, I
I
saw.
can believe it.
I think it was a Pat Flynn story, wasn't it? Of just, I saw somebody's story of
It's kind of sickening. It's like, why, man? Why do we need all this packaging? And then, like you said, we grade it and we repackage it, and then we ship it to people. And guess what that takes? Packaging.
Yep.
We can do better.
Yeah, we are the US especially is very, very wasteful. So unless the overall like retail market changes, in not just Pokemon, but with everything, Pokemon will never change with these collection boxes. For one, like Dan was saying, they already have all the machinery ready to make these boxes, so changing that would be an absolute fortune. And Pokemon's not going to do that unless they're mandated to do that. Like any other company, companies just don't go green because they want to. There's a bigger reasoning why companies do that. So that and I guess more so just the process is already nailed down. The products look good. So if Pokemon did make it so the packaging wasn't as wasteful, the products wouldn't look as good, they wouldn't display as nicely. You probably wouldn't be able to see what cards are inside, so they might not sell as well, which I think they probably would, but maybe you'd have less customers buying them. So I can't see it changing. I think if anything, it's going to get worse because Pokemon makes a lot more money selling these collection boxes than they do booster boxes. And it kind of seems like we're slowly moving in that direction where booster boxes are becoming less and less of a thing, and we're getting more and more of these collection boxes and ETBs and booster bundles and all of that other stuff.
Yeah, and I think Pokemon realizes that they have a very small percentage of their user base as competitive players. They're always trying to push that. So with your ETBs, your build-in battles, your trainer toolkits, they're always going to want to push those products that help people dive into the game. You guys would let me, I can share my screen and show you what happened at Card Party. Is that cool? This was about 4 feet deep.
I don't know if that'll work well. Can you just send it to me on Discord and then I can throw it on screen?
Yeah, sure.
Because the way that I'm capturing our cameras right now, it'll get all messed up if you share an additional thing.
Here you should have it. Processing.
Oh God, yeah.
This was about.
That's crazy.
That was 4 feet deep. And that was only a few hundred people over a weekend.
Man, that is wild.
So in a second here, I'll have the image popping up. But yeah, it's pretty nuts.
I was impressed, but also disgusted.
You guys in chat are really missing out right now.
If you could share that would be pretty spicy.
Oh.
Sorry as I format it to fit on the screen properly, but hey, there might be some code cards in here you can use.
Yeah.
God bless. Anything helps.
Yeah, so that's what we're working with. I don't know if it's made its way on screen for the live yet, but I've got it on my end. And this is kind of like cropped down too to make it fit, but it's there's a lot there.
Again, a few hundred kids for a weekend.
And you said that's like 4 feet deep.
Failed.
3 or 4, yeah. Like it was a bin. It was like a mini dumpster.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I know, like I just know what I've done. I'm one little guy. I'm one tiny operation relative to the entire 9.7 billion cards that get printed. And when a set drops, when I do a rip and ship stream, it's pretty disgusting, to be honest.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's nothing. Peak on RS wanted to know, will you take my Heritage consignments for me at the National? I'm lazy. Does Heritage actually do like in-person submissions for future auctions at like card shows?
Yeah, absolutely. We took in 3 consignments totaling like $200,000 just at Card Party.
There you go.
We weren't expecting to. So yeah, absolutely. If you could find us at the National, dude, if you want to get a kick out of something, go to the National's website and look at the floor plan. I don't know if you've been, but they're upselling the size of this event to the max. Like they're saying Drake is going to be there, Adam Sandler, Derek Jeter, Peyton Manning, those are regulars.
Man.
It's so easy to get lost. Now, luckily, Heritage is a pretty big company, so they have a big booth, but definitely come by. And we'll take care of you, and we'll take out our little, notepad, Excel sheet. We'll tabulate everything and we'll take it in. If it's over $1,000 on average per item, we'll probably throw it in our September signature. But if it's not, and it's kind of like more day-to-day stuff, sub 1,000, then it'll go in our week, probably in a month. But yeah, come by. That's the answer.
There you go. Go find Nick
On site.
Nice to stir up a little business for you.
Do you ever get people? Do most people who come to you guys know what they have? Like specifically like at these in-person shows, do they like come with you knowing what they have, or is there any times where someone's came up to you having no idea they had this like really expensive card?
So the vast majority of people do. It's kind of hard to not know when you have thousands or tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars for the stuff. But there are, those stories that everybody exchanges where it's like, yeah, this old lady found it in her. It does happen. You got to remember, Heritage has 50 different categories. Like you name a collectible, they probably sell it. Mm-hmm. It's not like PWCC. It's not like Golden where it's only cards, comics, and video games. Like, for example, guys, right now they're selling one of the copies of the Declaration of Independence. It is just ridiculous, the kind of stuff that they do. So it's kind of hard to not know what some of this stuff is, especially when you get into the higher dollar.
Yep.
To answer your question, yeah, it does happen occasionally.
Darren wanted to know, when you start selling multiples of the same item rather quickly, how do you not start to wonder if you're listed too cheap? Silly question, but there's not many comps for the item. One thing I'll say is it depends on the item. Is the item something you can easily replenish? Like something for me, I just get to where I pick on the same example over and over and over. If and when I have a week where I sell 30 Celebrations Charizards, I quickly check out TCG Player, I quickly check out eBay. Oh yeah, there's still hundreds available that are gem mint quality raw. So I don't really care. I'll let them all sell out. I know what I paid. I know what I paid to grade. I'll move them along. I'll buy more raw. I'll replicate. But if you're selling something that isn't available elsewhere and you're not able to just replenish, it's just kind of a feel thing. Like right now, a lot of people are going through that exact scenario. There are some people that might have had 5 Sightseers at one point, or 5 Lily's Full Forces, or whatever it may be. And they sold one at 1,000, and then they sold one at 2,000, and then 3,000, then 4,000. I did the same thing with Evolutions. I did the same thing with Evolutions in 2020. I had no ability to get more cheaper. My distributor stopped having any for me to buy. and I sold cases for 2,000, then 3,000, then 4,000, and I sold too soon on some of them. At the end of the day, it was a good problem to have. I did not feel too bad having sold slightly too soon, because you just gotta you gotta know what you have, and you've got to. This is almost like reverse FOMO. This is almost like worrying too much about trying to get that top data point, trying to get every single dollar out of it. And a lot of people that have this thought, they didn't sell their EVs at 1,000 because they thought they might be able to sell them at 1,500, and they didn't sell their PSA 9 unlimited Charizards at 8,000 because they wanted 10. You got to be careful. You got to be careful on the high end. And I don't know if you're specifically talking about something that's being pumped right now that's doubling every other day, but those are just some of my thoughts that I think of. And one thing, if you have 5 or 10 of an item, don't list them all at once. Maybe list them one at a time. That way, that if the price does double overnight, you don't sell them all at 100, and then 2 days later your 10 copies would have been 300 each, and you sold them all. So you can sell one. That's kind of what I did with Evolution's cases. I sold them one at a time. I had 20 or whatever it was, and I sold them one at a time. And it was very wise to do that. And there were certain cards where I had high quantity. I sold some all the way up, and then the bubble popped, and I sold some on the way down too. Like, I sold some too early, some too late. You'll never be able to sell every copy at the exact, like, perfect top. So what do you think on that, old school?
So I have a similar situation. PSA 10, Bandai Series 5, Charizard Prism Hollow. Really not much sales data. There's a few listings on eBay right now that are priced really, really high. So I wasn't sure where to price mine. So I kind of just started with a number that I was comfortable with. I listed the first copy at $500. That very, very quickly sold. So I knew I had that card priced too low. So the next copy, I raised the price to $750. Listed that on eBay. That lasted a little while. It eventually sold for like $600. I accepted an offer for $600 or $650, something like that. So I kind of knew at that point that my price point was reasonable enough where someone wasn't going to come along and snap buy the card because it was priced too low, but it was also priced high enough where I could kind of field offers and take something a little bit lower. So that was kind of my strategy with that card. And that initial $500 price point, there really wasn't any rhyme or reason to that. I just kind of picked 500 because the second lowest listing after mine is like $2,500. There's no sales data that I can find pre or post 2020. The only sales are like pre 2020, and the PSA 10s back then were like $100. So I just kind of picked 500 because I knew my cost basis. I knew what I was into the card for, and so I figured we'll start off there and see what happens. So that's what I did. Now, obviously that works because my cost basis is very, very low, and I have multiple copies of those cards available. So depending on where you're at with these cards that you're talking about, that might not be the best strategy, or it could be a good strategy. How about you, Nick?
I think you guys nailed a lot of the points. I also think it's variable. It depends on the card. It depends on what's listed. It depends on how the market is. But in your case, I think if there's nothing listed and you have a very rare or very niche, I think you should ask yourself, how easy is it to replenish? How much do I like this card? What price would I be happy selling it at ultimately? And then I would start at that price, maybe add 10% just as a cushion, go from there. If you can't find any sales data, I definitely recommend kind of exploring past eBay. I'm assuming eBay. There's plenty of other metric sites out there. There's Instagram for private sales. There's Facebook for private sales. Even YouTube lives like this where you can ask around. People that are deeply rooted in the hobby can probably help you. But if that's the case and you can't find any real data on it, then I think you just go lowest listed, assuming other listings, because you sell it eventually. If you have multiple copies, like Dan and Nick said, you just trickle them out. That way, you're not showing your whole hand at someone can't swoop in. for this stuff. Maybe.
Yep.
That's my take.
Here's one. We'll let you start first. Gem. We'll do Gem Nick. When do you predict PSA will drop their grading price? What do you think it will drop to?
Ever. It's
I
15
like it.
bucks.
There we go.
Why would they? I don't know about you guys' lead time, but mine is 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what it was pre-pandemic. And so that everything's stable now. They're still getting what, 8 million cards a year, way more than they ever have. So the demand is still there. Why would they, from a business standpoint? I think you talked about it yesterday, Dan. You said they would rather take 8 million cards or something like that. Yeah, you made a great point. Could you reiterate that, please?
Yeah, I think if they're doing, I don't know their financials, I don't know what their actual cost to grade is, but I'm assuming that they would make more doing 8 million a year at 15 than they would doing 15 million a year at like 10 or 8 especially. What's their incentive to drop? BGS is 16, CGC is 15. If they all just band together and say plastic costs this much, they can all make a lot more money, right? So it's kind of like they are the 3 players in the market. PSA is 10x more than the other ones. Why would they start the race to the bottom? It's like PSA's got the low list and the sales volume's high. Why are they just going to slash their margin? Try to equate it to like they've got a $250 listing for a Celebrations Charizard, and BGS is at $260 and CGC's at $250, and PSA's selling 10 times what the other ones are selling in a day. Why are they going to list it at $220? Why are they going to list it at $200? They're moving at $250. Like, come on, make that money.
I hate to say it, I'd love for it to return to 10 and have those specials where it was 9 or 8, but I'll see it. Why would they?
Yeah,
Nick,
like
I regret having you on the podcast now.
if and when the turnaround time gets down to 2 weeks, and if and when, because they grade about 1 million a month, 750,000 a month, whatever it may be. So at any one time they have a couple million card backlog. And if and when that dwindles to 100,000 cards or 200,000 cards, if and when it gets to where they're going to have graders sitting around doing nothing, I wouldn't even touch the 15. I would just throw a $12 special, throw an $11 special, like do it through specials and temper demand. Maybe 2 years from now, maybe the landscape fundamentally changes and a lot of the grading margins go away and the market just contracts. Then you go to 12, then you go to 10, then maybe you go to 8. Like, I'm sure their cost of grade is higher than it was pre-boom. Inflation, a lot of costs have gone up, but yeah, their net margin is a lot higher today at 15 than it was pre-boom at like 8 or 750, whatever they were doing. So I'm sure they're pretty cozy at that net margin, and they're going to stick it out as long as they can.
You think that with the increases in wages, in overhead, and supplies, everything we've seen in the last 3 years, do you think they'd still be profitable at $8, $9, $10 if they
100%?
Yes,
I think so.
I think
crazy.
Their break-even cost of grade is probably like $4 or something. Like it's got to be very, very low, I would think. Plastic is not very expensive. Sorry, Earth. That's why Pokemon packages with so much waste, because it's not that expensive. I don't know what they're paying for their cases, but I think during the actual pandemic, all the supply chain stuff, there was a time where they were probably paying more. But as of today, like steady state equilibrium that they found themselves in, I'm sure they're back to sourcing their cases for super, super cheap. So yeah, like I'm fairly confident PSA could grade a card and make money at $5, but you just don't do that. Well, like you don't do that. If you've got a card that you've got, again, equate it to like I've got a Celebrations Charizard I paid $75 for. I graded it for 15. I could do good business and sell my PSA 10 for 120. Like that's a comfortable margin, historically speaking. Why am I going to do that though when they're selling for 250? I'm not. You take the money. I mean, we're paying it. They're charging it. Everyone's happy enough, right? if and when things fundamentally change, they'll go down if they have to. But for right now, I just don't see it coming anytime soon. Nick fell for Nat's sweet talk about, oh, I'm a collector boy myself.
I still believe it.
You're all gonna get. We're gonna grade 20 million cards a year. Happy rainbows, butterflies. We love you. $10. Yeah, right. If they need to, they will. But they're not rushing to that. They could do that. They couldn't do that tomorrow because they would get backlogged again. I think it's actually intelligent to stay at 15 to avoid any semblance of a 2020 backlog again. But Nat was just whispering sweet nothings into the collector space, and Nick fell for it.
No, I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. It's gonna start out as a special. We'll see $12 at some point. I think we will see something for the national. I'll be surprised if we don't see some type of lower than $15 special for the national.
Or it'll just be golden feet. What the push?
That's another thing that they could push is lower. They could do lower grading if you send to the vault.
There you go.
Oh,
There's a lot of ways that they can do it.
And I hate it.
Yeah.
That's a real incentive. And it kind of upsets me.
I would expect to see like
I think I could do
1250
that.
or
I think there's
13
a
for the national. I would expect to see something a little bit for the national.
You do expect lower than 15.
But as a special,
Is that what you just said, Dan?
as a finite amount of time, 10 is what Nat was
But that's
saying.
still
10's not
lower than
happening
15,
anytime
right?
soon. I still have that ongoing bet with
more.
James, ZNG Emporium. I am definitely winning that bet with James. I think he knows it at this point. He's got to know it at this point. That we won't have $10 grading by the end of the year.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I can see 12 though. 12 within the next couple of months. Like I said, the national. I believe what Nat said. He could have been bullshitting, but I truly believe it. There's a lot of cards out there that aren't worth $15 that people want to get graded. And the only way to justifiably grade those cards is lower pricing, whether that be through a special, whether that be through the set registries. I think there's going to be some way that people will be able to grade for less than 15, and I think we will see it fairly soon.
But let's say it goes back to 10. What does the declared value limit?
That's the thing. I think it would be like $100.
That is oh whoa. Like $99. That's painful. You're gonna get upcharged city.
There are a lot of cards out there though.
Crystal Charizard over the
There's a
threshold.
lot of cards that are still sub $100, especially if you're talking older stuff that's fairly high print, like people chasing sets. That's theoretically who he was speaking to, who he wanted to be able to help out, and I just don't believe it that much. I think that was more just lip service, what people wanted to hear.
I think you really have to appreciate how much of this caters to sports. I don't think there's that many set collectors for sports. So maybe it was lip service. We live in this TCG world, but their bread and butter is sports. That's usually who they're interested in.
Looking at
Yep.
gem rate though, it is mind blowing how much Pokemon is starting to be of their overall. I haven't been following it too closely lately, but non-sports TCG, whatever they call it, is drastically increasing. Like in the prior 30 days, I'm looking at the pie chart right now. So the last 30 days, TCG is 380,000 cards out of the total 1 million. So it's a solid over 1/3. And that's
Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, everything.
That is everything. But yeah, that's crazy. Like TCG, and I don't know what the splits would be, Pokemon versus the other, but Pokemon, I'm assuming baseball is the second highest at 227,000. I'm assuming Pokemon would be at least 2/3 of TCG. So Pokemon is bigger than any sport individually, which is crazy.
Of that 380, I would assume Pokemon's like 280 to 3.
Yeah. So that's beating baseball by like a hefty margin to be the single biggest. And I'm sure I'm sure they have that like granularity somewhere where you can actually see that. But I guess with Pokemetrics, I'm actually on Pokemetrics right now. So Pokemon cards for the past, they go by 5 weeks.
9 weeks? That's such a random number.
Wait, this is CGC. Hold on. Oh, for some reason I'm on like March of 2021. Hold on. So the past 5 weeks they graded, I guess 1 week and then just multiply it by 4. 91,000 in the past 1 week. So yeah, times 4. That's pretty near the whole TCG. That's like 80 or 90% of the TCG. 360,000.
And the other day you posted a reel and it was about the total monetary volume of Pokemon cards that sell in a month. I think it was around 25 million on eBay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really curious to see what the sports category.
I did, shouting out again, my paywall. Shouting out again my paywall. No, I'm always either shouting out like Pokemetrics or Pokedata or my paywall. But I did a deep dive thing back in April, I think, where what I did for my short, I did that for Pokemon. I did that for Yu-Gi-Oh, Metazoo, Weiss. I did it for like 10 different TCGs. And then I also did it for sports cards. I did it for Panini Prism, like one sports card type alone, and the numbers were massive. Like it was absolutely crazy. I can actually access it in a second and just give a little bit of relative size of these markets because it was interesting. Bear with me for a second.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising to see those eBay numbers. How much Pokemon stuff has sold over the past couple of months. Because I thought we were seeing a fairly large uptick, or I guess like decent uptick the past couple of months, because that's what my own sales have been. January was good, February fell off a little bit, but then from March, April, May, getting into June, my sales have been increasing month over month. And so it was kind of surprising for me to see that the overall sales on eBay have been fairly consistent.
And I just got the data. I did it quarterly, just quickly. I did it quarterly. Quarter 1 of 2023, Pokemon, $65 million in sales. Like PSA Pokemon was 21.4 million of that. If you looked at Pokemon Booster Box, it was 13.8 million. So I kind of segmented it down into different aspects of the Pokemon market. I didn't go by sport, but I went by manufacturer. Panini alone was 173 million over the same time span. So Panini is nearly triple the size of Pokemon. All of Pokemon, all grading companies, all. I guess Pokemon would include Tops and things like that, but Panini Prism was 54 million alone, so almost the same size as Pokemon. And then like Tops was 135 million in the sports card category. Bowman was 46 million, Donruss 31 million. But yeah, that's something that I looked at over the past 2 years, quarter by quarter.
You're a small potato.
That's wild to hear how much smaller Pokemon is.
Much.
And then if you add all those up together, it's a fraction of what Pokemon's a fraction of that. That's crazy.
Yeah,
guys, we need to collect sports.
All the sports ones that I looked at specifically were 600. I guess there would be some overlap because I looked at PSA separately. Panini and PSA would have a fair bit of overlap for every PSA graded Panini card. Somewhere around 500 million though. Somewhere around 10 times ish the size of the Pokemon market.
That's wild.
Mind you, that's just eBay. Like, this is some context that I provided. That's not Troll and Toad. That's not Amazon. That's not PWCC Heritage Golden. That's not any of these other companies. And I don't know proportionally. Is Pokemon disproportionately bigger in eBay than sports? Or you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm not sure exactly how that would. I don't know if sports is more likely to be sold on eBay versus other platforms. I don't know if sports has like many TCG player equivalents or whatever, and how many of those funnel through eBay versus not.
And Heritage is definitely, it's sports by a mile. At Golden, it's also that, and it's also that at PWC. I think any marketplace sports leads by like a hefty mark.
So eBay is probably disproportionately more likely to have Pokemon.
Yeah, eBay's where it's like the closest, but like you just said, those numbers go along.
Yep.
I mean, it's a.
It makes sense for sports to be a lot more, a lot more of the sales volume for these auction houses too, because there's a lot more high end sports cards than there are in Pokemon cards.
There's also like half a dozen major sports.
Yeah, exactly.
We don't have basketball, baseball, hockey, soccer, all that good stuff. They're kind of.
We have soccer now.
Yeah, we do have.
Game over. We care now.
we just need all the other Pikachu sports.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Pikachu on the ball.
Yeah, we have Pikachu playing soccer. We need Pikachu on the gridiron and.
Just getting flatlined. I'm trying to see MMA Pikachu.
Yeah.
There we go. I am actually nearly an hour behind the chat right now, so at some point some of these questions will start disappearing.
The chat.
Okay, let's answer questions.
It's been a good chat though. I appreciate everyone who's left questions. Probably some will get skipped by me manually just so I don't lose a bunch altogether. Some will probably get eaten into the void of being over an hour behind. But yeah, here's one from Ghetto, wants to know, let's say you weren't biased to Generation 1. What's the best generation of Pokemon? I don't know if you're talking about the games, just the species themselves. I would probably say like Gen 2, which is probably like a bad answer because it's like just the next one, right? The next most nostalgic. But of all the games, personally, because I was more into the games than anything else when I was younger, I loved Crystal. Crystal was amazing, and the legendaries are awesome. You've got Lugia and Ho-Oh, and you've got the legendary beasts, and I just love so much about Gen 2. So for me, it's an easy answer as Gen 2.
I would say I was gonna take the easy answer like you, Dan. But then I was also thinking Gen 3 because I do like Gen 3 Rayquaza. So I'll go with that one. I won't be a cheater like you. I'll actually get out of the WotC era.
Okay, Gen 2 is my favorite generation. Okay, but Gen 2 has a lot of flaws and isn't very good objectively. You can't get a lot of the great Pokemon like Tyranitar, Houndoom, and a few others until late game. All the gyms and all the Elite Four in Johto are underleveled. And then I could talk all night about the other issues, but I won't. But like you said, Nick, I think Gen 3 and Gen 4. I think that's where they nailed it. That's where they really hit their stride. The remakes for Gen 2, Soul Silver and Heart Gold, are still masterpieces. I don't think many people have a differing opinion. If I had to pick like a perfect spot in Pokemon, it would be Gen 4, Heart Gold, Soul Silver. Yeah, Gen 2 and Gen 4.
Solid choice there.
Yeah. Rayquaza is.
Hermit Man 1, I disagree with this comment, so I think this will be interesting to hear your guys' takes. If PSA changed the color of the 10 label to platinum or call it diamond, BGS is done for. I think that would be poorly received by many, many people. I think PSA shouldn't touch what they're doing. Going further, I don't think this is what you're suggesting, but I've heard people suggest it over the years multiple times. If PSA were to introduce a premium 10, given that the 10 rates of Ultra Modern is so high, should they do something to distinguish it? I think that would be one of the worst business decisions in all of like business in the history of humanity. Because what people want are 10s. If you make a new premium 10, now everyone who collects Gem Mint 10s, that's not right now a Gem Mint 10. Logan Paul said it. His Illustrator is a perfect 10 out of 10. If you make a higher level 10, now not every other card is perfect. So even though you create like that elusive chase, a lot of people don't want it. A lot of people want that easy grader. They want those 10s. That's what they want. So yeah, I think if they were to fundamentally try to change or brand differently their 10s or try to add like a premium 10, that would be a terrible business decision, personally.
Totally agree.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the industry leader. I've never seen somebody upset to have a PSA 10. It's as simple as if it's not broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Evolve with the times, but again, evolution, not revolution. Leave it alone. It's fine.
Yep. If and when 5 years from now, PSA 10 rates of ultra modern stuff, sports, Pokemon, if everything starts approaching 95% 10 rates, and if CGC starts doubling, tripling their market share, if PSA goes from 90% down to 80%, they should start like they should be aware of it and be looking for it. But as of today, I see no signs whatsoever of that. Like personally, I don't think anyone's chewing into their market share. I think their market share over the past few years has gotten more dominant. So yeah, I wouldn't. Go ahead.
At that point, you change the scale internally rather than externally. You don't change the number or the label. Change how strict you are because way too many cards are getting.
And that's one thing
So
that
let's repeat.
quite a few people I believe think is actually happening. One thing that's hilarious, having been back in, and Nick was in before me, old school. I guess that's an interesting question for you, Gem Mint, Nick. When did you get back into the hobby? Before I go on what I was going to go on.
Late 2018, early 2019. I
So-
bought a binder in a parking lot. And it was game over. Almost got stabbed that day.
Oh, really?
Were you not listening when he said that in his intro, Dan?
I'm always looking through the chat. Sometimes I have to look through the chat to look for the next question while you guys are talking. So sometimes I do miss some things. What were the
Okay,
newest
yeah, no
PSA
worries.
certs
I
when you
heard
got back
say that
in?
at the beginning.
In 2018, what were the newest certs? Were they 4 certs? Or was it still
I think
2
they were
certs?
Early fours. I
Okay.
can't remember.
Because one
But
thing
I
that's
think they were
hilarious to
early
me,
fours.
I got back into the hobby in 2014. I graded a lot of the early grading that I did was 2 cert era, and my primary collection was like 0, 1, and 2 certs. And then I remember when we started 4 certs, it makes me laugh every time I'm in a Discord or I'm on Instagram and I see people saying how weak 4 certs are now. Because for so many years in my hobby, 4 certs were king, 0, 1, and 2 certs were trash. So now 4 certs are lumped in with 0, 1s, and 2s, and they're all trash. So old certs are always bad. The moderner, the better. The newest certs are always best. We're in like the 7 or 8 cert era. I can't wait until the 10 cert era when they go to like 100 million. And it's like literally, if it doesn't have that what is it, the 8th or 9th digit? If it doesn't have that 8th digit, all those early cert PSAs sub 100 million are all trash. I can't wait for that day 2 or 3 years from now, because it's like 0 through 4 certs are bad, 5 certs, 6 certs, 7 certs are the only good ones, and then it's been a couple years, let's lump 5 certs in with all the bad ones. It's just hilarious, honestly.
Yeah, but to answer your question, 2019 was early 4 cert. And you're
Okay.
right. 4 cert was the industry standard at that point. Then everything went nutty. Now we're on what? Are we on 8 cert yet? I think I've seen some of those.
We're in the mid 7s, I think. I have a submission.
I haven't seen 8s yet.
I don't think there's 8s yet, but we're at like 75 million. They jump around a little bit. They jump around a little bit because they didn't do much of the 3 cert era with Pokemon. They did most of that with sports, but there are some odd 3 cert Pokemon ones. The PSA can bounce around a little bit. If you're overseas, if you're getting like Ludkins or graded gem submissions back from 2020, some 5 certs, 6 certs are still coming out that were tied up in that whole mess there. But it's just really funny to me how like modern is always the best, and modern, whatever the newest modern cert number is, those are always going to be the best. And at the end of the day, like if you actually care about the card condition, look at it. Because like I've seen every era. I've seen 0 certs, I've seen 7 certs with cards with a 10 on the label that are 7s or 8s at best. Mistakes can always happen. So just, if you care about the card condition, always look for it. If people just universally wholesale say like, I will not buy a cert that's below 5 cert, 6 cert, 7 cert, That's always just hilarious to me.
I can see the people doing that. I was the same way, and for me it was because it was going from the old labels to the new labels back in like the 20 cert era. When they went to the new lighthouse label design, for me, I just like consistency, and I did not want to mix and match the new labels with the old labels. So I specifically searched out for those new labels, which at the time were 2 certs. So I can see the legitimacy behind that, and graded cards overall are expensive. So why not seek out and spend more time looking for something that you really want, even if it is just a specific cert number or whatever the case may be.
As someone who's focusing more and more on like high turnover and I'm just selling everything at all times, I am fully on board with the moderner the better for cards, for certs. Like I'm all about it. Most of my inventory moving ahead is going to be disproportionately ultra modern. So like I'm all about it. Yeah. Anything sub 7 cert is just disgusting. Like I don't want to see it. I mean, get it out of here.
Hey, I was being serious with my answer. Trying to have a heart to heart, and here you go making fun of me.
It's good for business. I mean, it's
send it in for reholder and you get the new label.
Yeah, but why spend more money reholdering when you can just buy the card for the same price?
How much
Yeah,
is
just pay
reholder? Like $10.
pay a 20% premium on it being a 7 cert.
Special stuff.
Yeah, for expensive stuff, yeah. But then even for expensive stuff, it's scary shipping off all those cards. I haven't mentioned this to anyone, but I recently sent off all my no damage Ninetales to PSA, and that was a very, very nerve-wracking day. I sent it overnight mail. Waiting for that tracking number to say it had been delivered was very nerve-wracking. But yeah, so I sent all my cards off to be reholdered, and it's scary on the high value things. But for anyone who's buying a no damage Ninetales, the pop report at PSA is about to skyrocket.
Dump it now while you can. But I think we deviated from the question a little bit. Yeah, no, PSA should leave everything alone.
For sure.
There might be money handled. There's no need for the platinum super duper onyx 4-piece steel super duper 10. No.
Yeah, when you're 90% of the market, you pay attention to your competitors and you make sure your 90% is staying 90%, but you don't make a drastic change to try to go from 90 to 99%. You don't get like super greedy and don't reinvent the wheel. Like they know what they're doing. They're doing it well, doing it well enough, I guess, to continue being 90% of the market. So they're going to run with it for now.
Yeah, I agree. Keep it the same.
This one's interesting, and I'll be interested if you guys have any thoughts on it. Ernesto says, I thought the summer was supposed to be really slow and bad for sales. Thoughts on the cap and the hobby? I've personally never really bought into the seasonality. There's so many people that have all these theories. Tax return time, Christmas time, absolutely. That's just like a broad sales are across the board on everything in that. But I've not overall seen or felt or bought into the whole seasonality. And yeah, I've heard so many people with these, oh, it's gonna do this, it's gonna do that because it's June now, it's August now. Do you guys feel or see a lot of seasonality, or not really?
I feel like I used to. Pre-2020, I felt like I had a good grasp on what was going to happen. Maybe part of it was in my head. But I always thought, starting from January through like mid-March, pretty slow. Mid-March through beginning of June starts to pick up because tax returns. June through August, pretty slow because everyone's on vacation. September, October starting to pick back up. November, December are the best months. That's kind of the mind frame that I always had in mind. And part of that might have been because just kind of in my own head, because my dad used to have a coin shop. And retail spaces, at least for him. Now coin collectors are typically older people. So living in New England, a lot of older people go down south for the winter and come back up for the summer. But his business was the exact same thing. It would be starts like I said earlier. Summers would be fairly slow. Winters would be better. So maybe it was just in my head, but I kind of felt like that was the general trend. Pre-2020, post-2020, it's been nonstop.
Yeah, I agree with Nick. I mean, tax return season, Christmas, Friday. As a whole, the whole U.S. economy likes to spend a lot during those times, and Pokemon's no exception. I think it dies down a little bit during the summer when people are traveling more, a lot of expense period. But as a whole, it's pretty linear. You're not going to have 5x your sales 1 month, the one before. So overall, there's some blips there, but I wouldn't read too much.
Yep.
Ghost Coast has a really good one here. Thoughts on Pokemon implementing collector packs, small packs with hits or a higher price. Basically eliminate the bulk, similar to what sports does with hobby boxes versus retail boxes. So do you ever see a future where, Pokemon will have like a premium product instead of getting 5 commons and 4 uncommons and whatever the ratio is on a box? Will you just get like $160 product that only has 30 cards in it, but the 30 cards are going to be like 12 of your big hits and then 12 of the smaller hits, and basically less bulk there? I mean, to some extent, they dabble in things like that with like the ultra premium collections, the UPCs and things like that. They're selling less cards overall at a slightly higher margin. They're getting some like direct sales of individual cards. You buy the Celebrations UPC, you get the Metal Charizard, you get the Metal Pikachu guaranteed. But I think over time, Pokemon is younger. I've said it many times, but if and when Pokemon needs to reach into its bag of tricks to stimulate more sales, like right now, they don't need it whatsoever. 9.7 billion cards last year. On a long enough timeline, I think serialized cards are inevitable. I think more premium product lines are inevitable. Sports did it. Magic is doing it. Pokemon will eventually do it, in my mind, at least. What do you guys think?
I'm sorry, I completely missed that. I was catching the end of Pokemon Radar's premiere.
Nick's watching Nick's live watching his own premiere. Oh man, Nick's not even with us. Oh,
it's tough being so popular. I'm in 2 places at once. For hits basically eliminate the bulk, similar to what sports does with hobby boxes versus retail boxes. I would absolutely love that. I would love it because it would make my job a lot easier. I don't think Pokemon will ever go in that direction because Pokemon caters to collectors a little bit, but their main focus, their priority is the player base, and players need a lot of these trainer cards. They need certain commons and uncommons. So where Pokemon is a TCG and that is their primary focus, I can't see them ever going in that direction. Now maybe a supplementary type product, a specialty thing. Even then, I can't see them doing that anytime soon. Just because they're already so successful right now. Why do they need to try anything new? Could they try something like that in the future when things start to slow down a little bit? Sure. But and then another thing with that is like depending on depending on how premium of a product Pokemon offers. Pokemon is at the end. Pokemon is meant for kids. Are kids really going to be buying these $100, $200, $500 collector boxes? Would that be an overall benefit for the Pokemon brand? I don't think it would. So I don't know if Pokemon will ever get into those premium type products, unless something big happens and Pokemon does start to decline. Then we'll start getting into those other ideas, one-of-one serialized cards, these types of higher end products. And
you can
and
do
stuff
both
like
though
that.
too. Like you don't have to do one or the other only. I mean, you can do hobby retail versions. You can do you can still do trainer toolkits. You can still do these battle decks, things like that that get players the cards they need. And you can have a higher end product too with less waste, less excess.
You could, but I just see it as Pokemon has started to cater to collectors now with some of these artworks, but I think it's still their focus is still primarily players. I don't think they care a ton about collectors. So I can't see them having this idea.
think it's very similar to the PSA question we had earlier, where they're killing it. 9.7 billion last year. It's not broken. Don't. There's nothing. We're in a sweet spot right now where they already kind of do this, especially on the Japanese end of things, where you have sets like V-Star Universe, those specialty sets that are just loaded with beautiful hits, have the chances for God Pack that aren't too hard to hit. I think you'd have to get the point of desperation, kind of like with Magic did last year, where they had to roll out the One Ring specialty. But yeah, for now. But it would be exciting if they did it. Serialized stuff.
Yeah, I don't see them rushing into it at all. Like right now, it wouldn't make any sense. But on a long enough timeline, like I would be kind of surprised if by the 50th year, 25 years from now, if they didn't dip their toes into something serialized or like a collector's product, collector's booster. I mean, they're doing like light versions of that already with like the Pokemon Center exclusive, right? Like that's a light version of something like that. We'll see though.
Japanese, there's a Precious Collector box. There's the Ola Master Battle set, whatever you call it. They do stuff like that.
Yeah,
It's
I mean
not packed.
they're selling like individual cards for like 100, 120, 100, $200, whatever those retails were.
Right, and that's definitely not for kids. So they see the market for it. Question is, do they want to go? I don't think they need to now. That is a great question. Nick, how are you looking on Radar's episode?
Oh, we're done now. So I'm back. I'm back to PokeFlipz now.
Welcome to PokeFlipz, Nick. It's nice to have you.
Thanks for coming back, Nick. I know you're a regular out here.
Issa asks, Nick or Dan, could I send you my cards and you could pre-grade them for a fee? I've actually done a few times where
you, Dan.
People have consigned with me and they've sent me raw cards. I've graded them and then I subsequently sell them as I buy it now on my eBay. It's not something I advertise too much because, especially with pre-grading, I've actually had some people send me cards. Hey, could you pre-grade them? I don't do that. It only leads to upset. If I pre-grade it as a 10 and it doesn't come back a 10, it's like you either think I damaged it or you're just unhappy about it. There's no winning. If I pre-grade your cards as a 9, 9+, and then they get 10s, it's like, well, why didn't you just know what there's just no winning. There's no winning in that scenario. A lot of companies were doing stuff like that in 2020, and those things didn't pan out great. Not that I think it would pan out that poorly, but it's just not something I'm going to touch personally. I will grade people's cards through PSA or CGC or BGS and then subsequently sell them. But I am not solely like a grading middleman. The only time I do that is special occurrences for consignment. not looking to be like a middleman grading company whatsoever.
Mm-mm. I'm the same way as you, Dan. I don't even enjoy pre-grading my own cards.
Yeah,
So the amount of money someone would have to pay me to pre-grade their cards,
just send it to PSA,
it just
right?
wouldn't be feasible.
Yeah.
What was that?
Just send it to PSA instead. Like, don't pay me $5 a card to pre-grade them or something. Just send them there
Yeah.
yourself. And one thing I will say,
Yeah.
get into a Discord, get into a Facebook group, go on Reddit. Like, a lot of people will just, like, if you have high quality images or scans of your card and you want to just throw them up somewhere, you'll probably get some people to just like say, hey, with that whitening, with that whatever, it's probably going to be an 8 or a 7 or what. I mean, free advice is worth what you pay for it, so it's not going to be worth too much at the end of the day. Like, to get a PSA grade, you're going to have to send it to PSA to get that. That's the only place you can get an actual PSA grade. So that's what I would suggest is just and then buy some already graded cards, look them over, get a feel. I mean, you can buy, there are PSA 10s out there on eBay ending in auction 20, 25, $30. There are PSA 9s sub $15, $10. Buy some cheap cards. Buy a cheap 8, 9, and 10 and do a little studying, do a little learning.
You don't even have to buy anything. You can just go to PSA's website. They have
Look at the scans too, yeah.
tool that you can.
Mm-hmm.
They have a great grading scale that you can study. I'd take 30 minutes to an hour just to go through that and kind of memorize the top grade, because that's what you'll be expecting, especially if you're submitting modern stuff. And then I would go to eBay, and there's plenty of good sellers with high res scans of the fronts and the backs. And I would say, okay, PSA 8 is my search. Go look at 10 or 15 PSA 8 cards, kind of see what characteristics of those cards are. Do it for a 9, do it for a 10, do it for 7, whatever grade. And you'll kind of get an idea of what you can expect in correlation to what your cards look like. And that way, it's not really a give a man a fish thing. It's more like teach him how to. You can use that for yours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly.
Hermit Man 1 says, if you were Biff from Back to the Future, what would you use as a Pokemon almanac?
I have no idea what this question's even saying.
In Back to the Future,
I've never watched Back to the Future.
Basically,
is this like a if you could know the Pokemon future question?
Like if you could go back in time and you could have, like, you would need like a website. You would just need to print out like all of Pokedata or print out all of what is it, TCG Fish or something like that. You would want to just have as much price history on what, because what happened in that was, obviously, if you could go back in time and you could have all the winning lottery numbers or have like all the price action on certain stocks or certain cards, you could capitalize on that. So I think that's kind of like what resource out there in the Pokemon space contains the most actionable knowledge if you were to be able to like go back in time and try to capitalize off that knowledge. There's not like, as far as like price guides, no one's really doing price guides in print anymore these days because it's out of date by the time you get it across the printers. All that stuff's just kept on the internet. All that stuff's just kept on websites these days. So yeah, I would just print off as many pages as I could and then bind it all together in a book from like TCG Fish or Pokedata or something.
Even forums. I think PokeGym was around back then. Depends on the year. You can travel back in time knowing what you know now. I wouldn't even touch Pokemon. Like you said, stocks, lotto, sports betting,
Yeah.
you name it.
There's a lot of, all you would need is one Powerball. You'd find out when the biggest Powerball was hit and you would buy the numbers for the drawing before that, right?
Yep.
Or just, yeah, Bitcoin, whatever. I mean, you only need like a couple billion so as not to, you don't want to win 10 Powerballs in a row and then get yourself captured by some government agency to figure out what's going on. You want to stay fairly low key.
Yeah, trickle your way.
Man, this podcast. I thought we were a Pokemon podcast. all over the place here with this question. Oh.
Raisin Bran is very confident in saying it's certain certs. 6.4 cert and up is awesome. All 4s and 5s are trash though. So yeah, I'm all about it. I'm all about once we hit that extra digit, once we hit the 100 million cert era, everything else is trash. I hope to have my inventory very lean by then. So I will not have any of the trash. I will only have the treasure ultra modern certs. I hope to be grading about 500 cards a week by then.
Do we have any?
What's up?
Do we have any serious questions?
Oh, I'm actually getting fairly close to fully caught up. So once I get within like 15 minutes of the actual time, I start throwing some memes up so we don't run dry.
I like Walrus's comment. Y'all have time travel access, and you're bettering your finances. Humanity is doomed.
You could like prevent disasters, like you could save the world. Like, hey guys, there's an earthquake coming tomorrow. Just all you should know.
Well, that's the whole like that's the whole butterfly effect thing, though. I mean, you save the wrong person, and then like they go on to be some terrible person, and humanity ends up doomed. They be the one who presses the button. Like, yeah, getting into all that time travel risk and we're getting deep here. We're getting into the nuance of time travel. Here's a serious question. I think we're fairly spoiled being in the US, being in like the biggest market, one of the easiest to do business in. Asking for a friend, if you were forced to move out of the US but still wanted to do Pokemon as a business, what country do you think would be optimal? I think Japan is kind of like a cheating answer because that is like the other major company. That is the major company is where it was made and where it all comes out of. So maybe non-Japan, non-US, where would you pick?
I think I would do Australia. And I say that just because PokeSteve seems to be absolutely crushing it, and he lives there. It'll never happen for me, but I've always thought about moving to some other country, Europe, Australia, whatever. And just to have all of my inventory already over there, because pricing is definitely you can get a premium over there than what we can get over in the US, because there's so much less competition over there than there is over here. So I have always thought about that. But on the flip side, though, you also have less buyers over there, and you're dealing with more international shipments yourself. There's no eBay international shipping program for international countries, which would be rough. So I think overall I do like it here in the US, but if I had to pick another country, it would be Australia.
Australia's a good one. It'd probably be between Canada and the UK for me. And what ultimately would decide that is like the taxes. Because you have to pay tax when you make a profit on this stuff. So whoever has less, that's the winner.
Yeah,
that's a good point.
What's that country that Logan Paul I think has a house in, and he tries to live like half his year there?
Puerto Rico.
Is it Puerto Rico?
It is Puerto Rico. My girlfriend was just there. She said you basically don't pay any tax except for 4% to Puerto Rico.
Okay, yeah, it is Puerto Rico.
You don't pay income. You don't pay. It's so busted. Which is why I'm looking at real estate there right now.
That's wild.
It is wild. All you have to do is be there. Whatever 365 divided by 2 plus 1 day is.
Yeah.
Over half the.
That's like the right answer. So much can be done online. You live there for how much you need to legally live there, and then you would need to sort it out. You would have to do like 3.5 day weeks. So you just work a compressed week. You have like nice long weekends where you kick back in Puerto Rico, or maybe you just do 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, and that's the play, because tax strategy is massive in business.
Mm-hmm.
Optimizing for your taxes is something that's I think a lot of people try to optimize by just evading them, which is not advised. There are ways to do things above board yet still optimize your tax strategy to grow a lot more like sustainably and to just pay a lot overall legally at the end of the day.
You know what's extra overpowered about Puerto Rico is still technically America. So you're not even shipping international. Ship to the US, which is the biggest market.
Yeah, because it's a territory.
Kinda crazy.
So I think you would have access to first class postage for like $4.50 or whatever to the whole country. Yeah.
Yeah, it'd be
Yep.
USPS, basically
Yep.
flat rate shipping for.
There's the play.
Yep.
And it's also like a tropical paradise. So I did both.
And complete side tangent about Puerto Rico. I did one trip on a container ship running from Houston to Puerto Rico, and Houston is right next to Anheuser-Busch, who makes all the Bud Light, Budweiser, all that stuff. And so our ship was one of the dedicated ship that would bring Budweiser over to Puerto Rico. We carried, I forget the numbers now, but it was like 300 containers every 2 weeks. We'd go Houston to Puerto Rico. And of those 300 containers, like 150 of them were filled with beer going to Puerto Rico. So they have
Nice.
plenty to drink over there, too.
Very nice.
I know exactly where that Anheuser-Busch factory is.
Oh, do you? Nice.
Yeah, it's like 30 miles from my house.
Oh.
So who's next?
Tom B asks, what do you guys think about the correlation between accurate or favorable grades and the tier you submit them at for PSA? I've heard so many theories about how people submit cards and framing a submission, paying the right amount of money, slipping the right denomination of bill behind the card in the card saver so that the grader gets it and ends up happy. I don't believe in any of them. I think PSA over the years, not just PSA, CGC, BGS, I think they've all been consistently inconsistent over the years. What people do is they extrapolate from very small data sets. They have one time where they do this one thing and it works, so they just get stuck in that. They think it's like a cheat code. At the end of the day, I don't think there's anything that's regularly going to work. There are over 100 different graders at PSA. I'm sure that they have more veteran graders at the higher tiers, and there are people that could argue that they're going to grade it more harshly, and there's people that are going to argue that they would grade it with more 10s. I just don't think there's any basis to any of it, personally. I've had very weak 10s at 150 a card. I've had very weak 10s at 15 a card. And I've had very strong 9s at both as well. So that's my take on it. What do you guys think? Is there like a cheat code to just unlock unlimited 10s?
No. Unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I would agree. Unlimited 10. I kind of disagree at the same time though, because I do think those high-end cards, like in Pokemon, your trophy cards, I do think that those get scrutinized a lot more than, say, whatever other type of card. I do think they spend a lot more time looking at those cards. They're more hesitant to give out a 10 on those cards. But then I do also think that influencers can play a factor in it, like Logan Paul's Charizard. BGS didn't think that was a 10 when Gary tried to send it in for review, but then when Logan Paul cracked it out of the case, it was a 10. So I do buy into that whole conspiracy. And I'll bust out my tinfoil hat if you want, but I'm a firm believer in that.
I think there's politics.
Oh, 100%. 100%.
I'd have to agree, but for 99.9% of all the cards, like Dan said, consistently inconsistent.
Yeah. I will say that the cards that I'm talking about are the vast minority. The majority of cards, it's like what you guys were just saying.
Here's a good one for our guest. Question for Gem Mint Nick. What did you collect when you got back in, and what are you collecting now, if anything?
So when I got back in, a lot of WotC promos and a lot of WotC set cards. I think that's where a lot of us start because that's our childhood. That's where a lot of our memories are. Now I am definitely looking at the stronger fundamentals of cards. The older, the rarer, the richer, the better. I think a lot of us have heard that SM Pratt mantra, and I take that to heart. So really just rarity. I had the chance to buy Trophy Kings on a PSA 8 this year. The deal fell through, but that's the kind of stuff I'm targeting. Just bought a TMB phone card. I mean, that's popped 9 out of like 30 in the world. So I just like going into the future with a card that I can say, where's the cheaper option? It's so rare that I basically control the market because there's 0 or 1 list. I like having that than like a pop 5,000 move. So that's where I'm putting my money. Now, I realize not a lot of people have that kind of capital to have these 1 of 100 or 1 of 50 cards. So if that was the case, just what I like. OG Shinings, Crystals, Gold Stars, stuff that's expensive and somewhat rare, but not going to completely destroy your bank account. But yeah, like at the end of the day, collect what you want. And that's what I'm doing too. Very realistic.
What's your favorite thing in your collection? Do you have one?
Favorite thing in my collection? Probably some of my childhood cards, just the memories attached to them. That's like the soppy answer.
I was gonna add that caveat, not to say childhood collection, but well, I guess we'll let it slide.
What cards do I love? I'm a big fan of Shining Tyranitar. Love that card.
There we go. Okay.
That's some Rita sign stuff I'm a big fan of. Trying to get some more signature
Nice.
crystals, stars.
I guess my biggest thing for not liking that answer is because I'm jealous that I don't even have my childhood collection anymore.
It's okay. You should see my stuff. It was through like a dishwasher.
Oh.
To say our attic wasn't humidity controlled.
Oh boy.
Oh yeah,
Dan, what about you?
You guys won't see it for a while.
But Landon doesn't care about us.
I'm showing my binder right now, my childhood binder. It's still next to me. You guys will see it in like 30 seconds or whatever on the stream. But I had a video come out Monday of what I'm collecting, and it's very little. There's very little that I value more than the market. Like at the end of the day, if the market wants it more than me, I sell it into the market. And almost every card, like there are so many cards that I love. I did own all my chase cards in PSA 9 at one point. I would love to own them all in PSA 10 if the price were right, but the price ain't right. Like what I value these cards at versus what they're going for in the market, there is such a disconnect. It is so far off. Like PSA 9 base first Charizard. I used to have one. I bought it when it was like, I bought a complete PSA 9 103 card set from Gary for $8,300. I valued the whole set at $8,300, but now the Charizard alone is $20. I don't value it at that. And maybe to some extent my values have changed, and I'm doing this full time now too, so it's harder to justify tying up a lot of capital. So yeah, there's like what you see behind me, the Quaxley stuff, the canvases, the non-TCG, non-card, relatively cheap stuff compared to what cardboard goes for. I love this stuff. Like I still love Pokemon cards. I just can't afford them, basically. Crazy to me.
Unless they make you money, eventually.
Yeah, I mean, I buy them and I sell them. Like I just can't justify at these prices like consuming them, buying them and holding them. Elvis in the chat. Elvis wants to know, seeing the hype for 151 and Obsidian, most of the hobby will be spending their money there, so what opportunities could that open elsewhere? there are so many opportunities this fall actively today and going into these sets. I think again, most of the money is in like the most ultra modern stuff. So I'm going to be taking my full allocations and I'm going to be trying to capitalize on graded plays in some of these newest sets. But yeah, there's a lot of other stuff in the background going on too. There's a lot of opportunity right now for someone with capital and with time to flip. Not going to spill all the plays though.
Everybody's spill one play. What's one thing you think is heavily undervalued? People aren't looking.
Oh, like an investing play, you mean? Or like a flipping play?
Rather quickly. Yeah,
flipping Celebrations Charizard. Buy gem mint ones as near mint on TCG Player for $80 and sell them for $250. As far as
haven't heard you say that one before, Dan.
Yeah, as far as undervalued, as far as like buy it and hold it and wait for it to go up, I have a hard time picking those. Like I can pick things relative to other things, but Pokemon just feels so expensive right now. Like I don't invest in cardboard inherently. I never have. I never plan to. But as of today, like I wasn't investing in cardboard. I was buying things I liked 6 years ago, but I didn't like them as investments. They panned out well in hindsight as investments, but that wasn't my intent. And with prices what they are today, I don't personally see any of it as like an investment opportunity relative to like risk adjusted other places you could put money. But I'm just the perma bear, so that's just me.
You are very much a Debbie Downer over there. I'm not actively doing this. I'm buying a few copies here and there, but nothing crazy. But I've said it before. PSA 9 Alt Art Evolutions, the one from the Evolution collector boxes. Artwork on those cards, absolutely fantastic. They're not super easy to grade. The condition straight out of the boxes was pretty rough. And I just think they're evolutions. You can pick them up for $25 to $30 at auction. I just think that's a good buy right now. But then again, there are a lot of them graded. It could never happen that they do go up, but who knows? Who knows what'll happen? But if I was more into the investing side than the buying and selling side, that's something that I would be going after.
Pretty good point. I can see it.
How about you? What's your what should I go buy after this podcast to make $1 million?
Battle Day Lily, right?
About all that. Well, either that or a small home.
Yeah.
I think PSA 9 WotC era Japanese holos. I think that if you go on eBay and you see those for $30, $40, $50, $60 dollars, that seems criminally low considering those packs are $200, $300, $400. And then you still have to grade it. And somebody still had to ship it to you. And that's like $75. So that I feel like there's a disconnect. That doesn't really make sense. I'm not saying it's going to shoot to the moon. I'm just saying that seems like a really big value play. Still get the great artwork that you did during the WotC era. You a vintage collector, I think it's like for example, I saw Tyranitar, Neo Discovery, right? That's a great set, and that's one of the top 3 cards from that set.
Yep.
$60 PSA 9.
Man,
that didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, that does make sense.
That's a $300 pack. $250 maybe. Like, I don't know. That's what I got.
Turbo KB1 says, "What are your thoughts on allowing returns for listings?" One thing I will say, Nick is a top-rated seller as well. Gem Mint Nick, I don't know how big your eBay is or if you're like in the top rated. One thing that we benefit from in our category is we don't get the badge on our listings unless we offer 30-day returns, I believe it is. But we get the 10% discount for being a top rated seller as long as you have 1 day handling time and as long as you meet the requirements for top rated sellers. So you do not have to, in the trading card category, accept returns. So I personally don't. I fear accepting returns because I fear getting people like they buy the card for me for 200 and then they find it a week later someone listed at 180 or 150 or the price tanks in like the 2020 or 2023 bubble burst or whatever. So I don't personally do it because I'm not required to. And yeah, I think it does help your search ranking and all that, but my sales are pretty solid without, so I've not opted for that.
Uh, like Dan said, if you want to be top rated on eBay and you want to reduce the worst thing about eBay, which is the fees, then you have to offer a return for 30 days. That's that 1 day handling time. So in my case, I do that. And I don't really experience those kind of returns, those senseless ones that often, maybe once, twice a month, if that. But I've sold about 1,000 cars last year, and it rarely happened to me.
Oh, you accepted
Still
on
doing it.
everything?
Yeah, I've got everything is 30-day returns.
Wow.
Rarely do I get. Have you ever offered it, and were you just like bombarded with them? Is that why you're against it?
I've never tried it. But you
People were
get
surprisingly not shitty,
one or two a month.
if that.
I'm trying to just think how many
I
that
don't
would
do the volume
extrapolate
you do.
to.
Yeah, I don't do the volume you do. Maybe after the chat here, we should punch some numbers.
Well, I actually I never offered free returns, and I semi recently started doing that. I don't think it's quite been a month yet. It might have been a month so far. And I do the free returns, so I'll pay return shipping as well, which I was hesitant to do that at first. But I haven't noticed much of an increase in returns. There's been I've had two so far. One was because the guy disagreed with me on the condition. And then the second was just because the guy said he didn't like the pack that he got. So it is a little bit of annoying. It is more returns than I normally get, but the person I was talking to about starting to offer the free returns brought up a good point. And it was basically if people want to return something to you, they're going to. They're going to open up an item not described case. eBay is going to automatically side with them, and they're going to be able to return the item. The people who are doing these returns like through the normal process, it's fewer people are doing that. Hopefully that made sense.
Authenticity guarantee, though, they can't do INAD. So if and when I ever were to do it, I might do it on maybe a certain value tier. Maybe sub 250, I do add it. Above 250, I don't. But yeah, I don't know. I have added it to a select few listings as a trial. I've actually had eBay requires for certain promotions on their end that you have it, and I don't know, Nick, if that's why you've added it to some, if you started adding it, but I've added it on a select few listings that I have that have gotten like certain additional promotions. So other than that, though, like I just fear adding it universally. 30 days is a long time. 30 days for them to just decide, the card fell 30%. I'm not going to take that L. You're going to take that L.
They just don't do that. They don't keep their ear to the ground that much. They get the card and they either like it or they don't, and then they put it aside. And
that's how I go about it. That's how I think about it as well.
It's probably heavily dependent on what you're selling too. Some cards are probably disproportionately more likely to go to someone that's stonking out, investing, trying like if you're dealing with stuff that's actively bubbly, you're probably disproportionately more likely to get returns, because those people are probably, if someone's buying a card that's newly $2,000 and 2 weeks ago it was $500, they're probably paying more active attention to the pricing.
Absolutely.
And that's the other thing I didn't mention is I don't offer returns on consignments. Just all my own stuff. Consignments would be really tricky.
Well,
So I just do it on all of my own stuff.
that would open you up to getting scammed really hard because someone could
Yeah,
have their friend buy the
exactly.
card, you pay them out, and then they force the return 28 days later. That could be that's part of the reason why I don't too. I didn't mention it, but yeah, I've had that conversation with other people, and I can never do it universally because I can never do it on consignments because that could be gamed and it could be very punishing.
Mm-hmm.
It is almost 11 right now. I think we had intended and talked about going for like 3 hours, so maybe till around 11:30. If you guys, I mean, if we're still going good and you guys want to go later than that, I don't have a curfew. I don't have a bedtime. I'm cool with whatever. But sometime between 11:30 and 12, maybe we'll call it. We'll have to see how you guys are feeling. And
Yeah, I do have to step out for 1 second, so I will be right back.
Yeah, me as well. I'm gonna take a rest.
okay,
You're on your own, Dan.
Bowie Day.
I'll entertain chat. I'll try to take this question and then leave it to you guys. This is a really long
Brad
question.
had a
So
good one.
who did?
Brad, will there ever not be a bubble? But go ahead.
Oh.
I know you want to go in order.
Yeah, Ghost Coast says, how would you describe your single card inventory percentage wise with regards to gains, losses, and break even, i.e., 50% of my inventory are gains, 30% are losses, 20% are break even, etc. And of your gains, do they tend to be from many small incremental sales or fewer larger dollar sales? That's a very lengthy, wordy question. I hope I'm understanding it correctly, but I deal in such a diverse, such broad parts of the market that I can't like singly answer this. If you're talking about, you do ask specifically about single card inventory. So I've talked about it 20 times. I might as well make it 21. Celebrations Charizard. I buy those at market price. I grade the gradable ones, and I sell the non-gradable ones at a break even or slight loss. Depending on the card, some of them are 50% hits, 50% gradable. It all depends on what the multiplier is. If you triple your money on the wins and the wins are 50%, overall that's going to be a profitable endeavor, especially if your losses are only like a couple dollar losses, $5 losses, and or break even. So I feel like I've said it many, many times, but when you try to look for like a rule of thumb, when you try to break down everything I do into 20% this, 30% that, 50, you just can't. The number, like, I don't track things that closely, and it's hard to get numbers, like, it just doesn't work that way. So I'm sorry, that's probably not a very satisfactory answer, but unless I'm completely missing the mark on understanding the question, I don't know how to answer it more thoroughly than that.
Okay, I am back.
Jester Beats says, why do celebration products go for top value, but the cards alone are low value? Charizard's $80. I don't know that the card, I mean, to me, the cards are kind of expensive. Some of them. I'm not saying the product is like plus EV, but I think Celebrations for me personally was a very fun product to open. And it's reasonable that there's going to be some kind of like a gambler's premium. You take what like the pinnacle card could be, what you could end up opening. People are going to be willing to pay $6-7 a pack when they can hit a $250 PSA 10 Charizard. So yeah, sealed is just not always, but sealed is often going to garner some kind of a premium because of that just fundamental, like people want to gamble, people want to rip stuff and have that experience. So it's built in.
Yeah,
what do you think?
Exactly. I pretty much agree with you on that one. I do think for the vast majority of sealed products, the sealed product is always going to hold a premium over the single cards. And I think Celebrations is a key one there. Obviously, I absolutely love Celebrations. So again, I might be biased on this, but people love opening Celebrations. They printed a ton of Celebrations, and it's been out for a couple years now, and people still love buying packs. They love opening packs. And eventually there's going to be fewer and fewer packs out there. So I think it makes sense that the pack pricing is fairly high for the cards inside. But then again, like you said, you could pull the Charizard. You could pull the Gold Star Umbreon. I think those are probably. I think those are the only two that would make it. Or I guess like the Magikarp would be worth more than the pack price. But there's not many cards that are worth more than the pack price, unless you do get a PSA 10 out of it, which that also plays a factor into the price of sealed product.
Wreck-It Roush says, I've never graded a card. Any thoughts on how many cards to send in for a first submission? I don't want to send in 100 cards and get wrecked because my pre-grading skills suck. It all comes down to like what your budget is and how much capital you're working with. Obviously, the more cards you send in a single submission, the less on a per card basis, like the return shipping and all those fees factor in. But 20 cards, 25 cards, as long as that's affordable to you, feels pretty reasonable. Send in a variety of different eras. Like I don't know what you have, I don't know what you collect, don't know what your goals are, but yeah, send in a handful and then closely look at the card's condition. As we talked about earlier, go to PSA, read the description for all their different grade standards. Look at a bunch of scans. Go on eBay, search whatever card you have. Search PSA 10 Moonbreon. Look at all the 10s. Why are they 10s? Look at all the 9s. Look at the few 8s that are out there and try to gauge what you've got versus what's already out there. And then good luck. Good luck spinning that roulette wheel that's inherently built in to some extent with all these different grading companies.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I would start off. Everyone started off small. 10, 20 cards would be a good start. I remember my first few submissions were 10, 20 cards, and then once you get those submissions back, then you take a good look over them. See why some of your cards got 6s, 7s. Hopefully not, but if they do come back, try and find out why those cards graded lower, and what are the factors to get an 8, 9, 10, whatever. Spend a good bit of time kind of looking over your return and kind of trying to figure out how PSA grades cards. That's the biggest thing. Is to not only submit cards but also use the grades that the cards come back as a learning experience for future submissions.
Yeah, Roush, the first time I ever submitted cards to PSA, I didn't even know how to do it online. So I waited for a card show to come to Houston. And then I drove half an hour to convention center where I knew PSA would be. And I filled in a piece of paper like a caveman. That's how nervous and unknowledgeable I was. In that submission was a first edition Shadowless Charizard. It came back at 2. So clearly I wasn't doing too good. My point here is part of the fun is the trial and error. Start small. I think the minimum for bulk is like start there. Start with about 20 cards. And if you miss on a few, that's okay. Because again, part of the fun of it is learning as you go. Getting more experience goes by, getting your
Takibana says, you need free returns to get extra fees off as a top-rated seller, though, Dan. And with how much business you do, that 1% or so is thousands of dollars. I literally had this conversation this morning with someone. It was actually with Retro. I was having this conversation with Retro, and I went back and I looked at a handful of sales. I think my default fees are 12.35% with having a basic store, whatever my store is. I get a 10% discount because I offer 1-day handling. Our category is exempt. Our category is exempt from having to offer 30-day returns for getting that 10% discount. So I did the math. I sold a $440 Gengar, whatever the card was, and it was 440 times 12.35%, and it equaled 50 whatever dollars it equaled. And then they gave me a 10% discount to that. So at the end, all said and done, my fee rate on that, they didn't pay sales tax, they didn't have anything else. So I paid like 11.15% or something fee on that. The only thing that I'm missing, because I don't offer the returns, I don't get the badge on my listing. But if I was selling toasters, if I was selling whatever other thing, you're right in that I would have to accept free returns. But there's a small handful of select categories that are exempt from the free returns, and our our non-sports trading cards is one of them in the toys and hobby category. I don't think that's something that like I'm grandfathered into, because that was actually one question by Retro. I've been a top rated seller for I don't know how many years now, but it's been a little while. I don't think I'm like grandfathered into that. I think anyone has that. I would need to Google it to verify. But Nick, I'm assuming you've seen that on your end too, right? Like you're getting the 10% discount even where you're not offering the 30-day returns.
Yep. Yeah, no. In our category, you don't have to offer 30-day returns. You just have to offer you have to offer the 1-day handling time. And then eBay has an automatic 3-day window where people can send returns. You can't do anything about that, but you don't have to offer the 30-day returns for our category, Pokemon cards. And even TCGs in general.
Yep. I think the main positives for doing it would be, like you said, the badge, and just hard to quantify, but it's like the buyer confidence. You know, when they see free shipping, when they see free returns, all those metrics they want to see.
And some people filter by that. So I would be excluded by some amount of people's searches that filter me away. And even if someone's not doing any filtering, the algorithm would like that. The algorithm generally likes the lower prices, the higher ad rates, the free shipping, the short handling times, the longer returns. So if Gem Mint Nick and I have the same card priced exactly the same, and he has free returns and I don't, his is ranking higher. It's not going to rank above like the sponsored ones, but if his is sponsored too on top of it, then he'll be like, yeah, one of the premier ones. Well, I'll be like down. Because eBay just fundamentally likes the seller dealing with free returns, because then they don't have to play like mediator when the buyer wants to return it but the seller doesn't accept returns. So now eBay's got to step in and do something. When a seller offers free returns, no questions asked, eBay generates the label, eBay takes the label money from the seller's account, and there's no angry parties. The seller may not like it, but like they're open, they're accepting it. So yeah, you can see why eBay would want to push those sales more so, because it's going to lead to less customer service on their end.
Someone put it to me the best way. Be like Amazon. That's like ideal. You want to have free shipping, you want to have quick handling time, and you want to have free returns. Amazon offers all of that. So you should too.
Yeah, ask yourself that. You as a buyer, what would you like to see?
Yeah, Brad G Card says, will there ever not be a bubble? There were definitely times where I guess getting back into when I first got in, there was like a gold star bubble at one point, pre-2016 boom. 2014 to 2019 generally was nothing like what's going on the past few years. Things were steady tailwind, things were generally going up, but there was a lot more just sanity. There was generally more sanity. And I wouldn't describe any of those years as like a bubble. I would call 2016 a boom. I think there was a gold star bubble over a few months span built in there with a lot of shilling, with a lot of shady crap going on. But as of right now, like 2020 was a bubble that didn't really pop, it just moved. And I think at some point in the future, we will return to more of a semblance of normalcy. Will it be this new normal that people are saying? I don't know, but I don't think everything that's going on the past few years is sustainable. And if it is, that's amazing. Like, I'm going to be doing just fine if all this stuff sustains. So,
Been 2 years from the peak, and things have come down, but it's crazy. We're still this high.
yeah, I mean,
it really is.
some stuff's down 90%, some stuff is 10x, and some stuff's flat, like any other year in the hobby. More so these past few years, but it's there's always something exciting and crazy going on, which just makes it fun to be a part of. Ghetto has a quick one just for me. I have a 3-year-old and we never really had a bedtime for her. Do you have a bedtime for your kids? What time is it? So my kid's bedtime is 8 lately. For a while we were doing 8:30 and they were just like sometimes waking up not to like my son was school mostly. My son goes to pre-K now. So 8:30 didn't seem to be enough. He was kind of like hard getting him out of bed for preschool in the morning. So I have some cousins, I have some friends, kids with the same age that have a 7 p.m. bedtime. I have some that have like a 10 p.m. bedtime. It's all about like learning your specific children and their needs, their body's needs. And for us, that's fallen on 8 p.m. So anything to add from either of the Knicks or no?
No, can't say I have any input on this one.
No offspring, so
Yeah. Raisin Brand says, at all, you think very early WotC 9s are holds since standards are stricter. I think he meant. I will tell you that I do have a lot of WotC 9s that I do want to sell. Like, I don't think they're good investment pieces. I don't think it's wise for me to have my capital tied up in them relative to having the capital to just churn through like flipping product. But it is very painful. It is very painful to list. Like, relatively speaking, these feel so undervalued to so much of what I sell every day. Like, when I'm selling a pop 10,000 PSA 10 Celebrations Charizard, there's mention number 22 for the night. When I sell that for $250 and then the next minute I list a PSA 9 first edition like chase card, like a holo from what Gem Mintnick was talking about earlier, a multi-$100 pack, if not like a $600, $700, $800 heavy pack, and I'm selling the PSA 9 hit for $250. It's like, that doesn't feel good. Because I can go and I can buy 50 of those Charizards for $75 a piece and iterate over again. I can't buy PSA 9 WotC Holos raw mint and replicate that card. I can't reproduce that inventory. So it's like, once I sell it, it's gone and it feels bad. But yeah, the market's the market. So it's like, if I had to hold something, I would hold those over the more modern stuff. But as I alluded to and talked about earlier, I don't really want to hold those as investments. I just want to have more capital to churn with.
Mm-hmm.
totally agree. Yeah, that money's better suited for churn and burn flipping. Buying raw, probably modern, you'll do better than flipping into the market. But if you're really keen on just passive, set it and forget it, then stocks and real. That's where I'd go with
100%. Yeah.
PSA 9, Venom off from Jungle, or
Yeah.
whatever.
Especially because it's tax advantaged and yeah, yada, yada, yada. All that stuff no one wants to talk about or hear.
No one wants to talk about it, but it's the easiest way to make massive wealth over decades.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with you on that one.
Dude, Walrus is so funny.
Mr. Walrus is He's the live chat. Go. I'm gonna drop a bunch of Badoo's in chat for Mr. Walrus. Here we go. Here's a question from Peak Dat Chew. I see a meme question from Brad G Cards at the bottom of the chat. Do you feel the current Japanese Do you feel the current Japanese sales, waifus etc., are a short-term burst from a new buyer pool, market manipulation, or that it could be the norm for a multi-year run? I've been taking a lot first, so I'll let someone else go, and I'm gonna step out and use the restroom really quick.
I'll wait for the question to come.
Go
ahead, kick it off.
For me, I think it's a combination of the first two. A short-term craziness going on with people who were just finding out about these cards because I think people started buying these cards and talking more about these cards, and pricing slowly started to uptick. And then all of a sudden, people were really talking about these cards, and more people were buying these cards, and pricing absolutely exploded, which is where we're at right now. So I do think that happened. I do think there are people who definitely shill bid some of these cards to make the price seem a lot higher than it actually is. But as far as this being the new norm for a multi-year run, it could happen. If I had any of these cards myself, I would be immediately selling them. I cannot see this lasting for multiple years. I can't see it lasting much longer. For PSA 10 Scream sets to be selling for $20,000 right now, that seems absolutely insane. And then the Lily that sold for $100,000, absolutely ridiculous. You had a really spicy Instagram post about the Lily at $80,000 versus the Kangaskhan Trophy Kang at it was like $65,000 for the 8. And some of the comments in there were scary from the people arguing for the Lily. I do not understand the logic whatsoever. But maybe I'm just old at this point and don't know what I'm talking about.
Okay, boomer. But you're right. I think that's the most divisive topic in the hobby right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to stir the pot, that is the topic for it. But to give you my take on the question, I totally agree with Nick.
Mm-hmm.
Anything could happen. We don't have the crystal ball here, but I can't imagine it continuing this run up or even sustaining it for the next few years. I mean, we already saw this. People forget that these hype cards for Japanese Modern, these waifus, Mario, Luigi, all of these marquee cards that are leading this charge, these were like $100 in a PSA, like out the gate. And then we had the run up, the 2020, 2021 run up. And then they shot up 10, 15x. And then they rubber banded and they corrected like they should have. It was 21 to now, recently, a few months ago. So now we're seeing the same thing, the same run up. And if history repeats itself, which it usually tends to do, then yeah, this is going to have a pretty sizable correction, or at least it should. Only different variable is that I think a lot of this is spearheaded by the newfound interest from the Chinese markets. And that's incredibly unpredictable. Because for the longest time, it's just been English-speaking markets, for the most part, America and most of Europe, and Japan. So maybe not that much of a correction, but a correction on.
Yeah. For this to be the norm for a multi-year run, if you start doing the math on a card doubling every week for a multi-year run, and you're probably not getting that drastic with it, but what's happening over this past month specifically is not sustainable over a 3-month period, let alone a 3-year period. Because if you double every week, yeah, the numbers get insane. So something's got to give, and something's got to give relatively soon. Otherwise, the market cap of these waifu cards from a few select sets will outstrip the GDP of the entire Earth within like 6 months or something. Like exponentials get insane. So something will give. I guarantee it. Some cards are worse offenders than others. There are crazy, like kind of like going back to the WotC boom 2020, the WotC bubble, whatever. The jungle in Pikachu, the jungle Eevee and Pikachu, they were very bad offenders because they were very high print run cards and they were available by the millions raw mint and they're constantly being opened in every box break, yada yada. They fell 85%. There are cards that absolutely from the peak will fall 85%. Disproportionately, it's going to be the ones that are more available raw mint. Some of these cards, though, are tough. Like some of these cards, like that Battle Day Lily, I don't think it should be worth what it's worth. But at the end of the day, that's what it's selling for. There aren't like a million copies of that. I think it's theorized that there might have been 1,000 awarded. And I think there's a couple hundred, few hundred graded. Like that's, in a lot of ways, that's a lot of copies. And that's a really high market cap for that card. But still... just a card like that is just inherently a lot better than a set card that has millions and millions and millions of copies. And I know it's selling for 100 times what the Jungle Pikachu sold in 2020, but some things are better and worse than others. It's all a spectrum. It's all as I said, some of these will tank 80%, and but the thing is, they might double again, they might triple again before they tank 80%. Like we just don't know. So. At the end of the day, there's a little bit of everything. It's a little bit new buyers. It's a little bit FOMO. It's a little bit stonking. It's a little bit chilling. I know specifically that there are certain aspects of this market that I'm flipping heavily on. I'm buying, grading, selling, over and over and over. And I've been closely looking at the sales of certain cards specifically that I'm playing in. And some of them are the same certs popping up week over week on PWCC. Some of them are the same certs popping up on eBay. And it's funny. It's funny / sad. Because certain cards will sell. They'll sell for 1,000 and go unpaid and be relisted. And then they'll sell for 2,000 and go unpaid and be relisted. And go for 2,500. And then that time they'll get paid. So it's like some of these successive increases aren't real. Yet the market like sees it. They go into PokeData. They go into TCG Fish. They go into all these things. And then they're like used to justify the next data point. And then that one's real. So the old one's not being real doesn't matter anymore because there's a real comp. It's people are getting semi-comp crazy like they were in 2020. And there's just a lot of scary feeling and looking things is what I'll say.
And I think like 2020 with the EVs and the Pikachus, there wasn't many of those cards in the PSA Prop Report at the time because people weren't grading those before the boom. And then the boom happened and people couldn't grade them because PSA was shut down or people sent the cards off and they didn't get returned for 2-3 years, whatever the case was. Nowadays, the cards that people are going after, the pops are a lot higher on all of these cards, and PSA is actively open. And they're getting cards back in 2-3 months. So I think it's more wild right now than it was in 2020. 2020 at least made a little bit of sense. What is causing it right now? I have no idea on that.
Price goes up, so price goes up.
Yep, it's hype.
At some point, it will be price goes down because price goes down. Like it goes the other way too. FOMO happens on the way up. FOMO happens on the way down too. Like fear of missing out on selling for the most money that they could have sold for. It's gonna happen. Some cards won't get hit as hard. Some cards might not get hit at all. But yeah, it's absolutely gonna happen, just like it did in 2020. There will be things that are falling 80%. There will be things that are. It's crazy.
I think it's important to ask yourself, why are you buying something? And if the answer is because the run-up excites me and the numbers now excite me that I've seen, then you might want to reevaluate.
And if you have the money and if you just like gambling, like I go to the casino. When we went to when we went to Hooks at New Hampshire, that event, the next or that night we went to a casino in Boston and we were gambling and having fun. And I know I shouldn't go to. I'm good at math. Like I know I shouldn't go sit down at the blackjack table. if you're doing it with money you can afford to lose and you just want to be playing in it and you like this stuff and whatever, but like some amount of people in 2020 actually lost like meaningful money to them, to their family, to their livelihoods, and some amount of people are going to lose meaningful money to their livelihoods during this too, and that's just kind of sad, but like you can't really do anything about it.
No, there's phone numbers for that. You can call a helpline. If there's a Gamblers Anonymous for Pokemon,
For Pokemon cards,
you know,
I use
rephrase
the
it.
betting apps. So yeah, I guess log into DraftKings and call that same number. I mean, tell them you're not doing DraftKings. You're just doing you're doing waifus.
Yeah, I FOMO'd into these ponchos. It's bad. I can't stop.
Yeah. uh, Here's another question that kind of touches on a little bit what we talked about earlier. Kind of like tinfoil hat conspiracies for framing submission, submitting your cards to the PSA. So Zard Lurking says, I have a lot of Diamond and Pearl era cards and Modern that I will be sending to PSA. Do you guys think it's better to do two separate subs or mix both eras together? I'll let someone else start here.
Doesn't matter.
If you want to start, Nick, you can.
Send them together. I don't think it's going to change the outcome significantly, if at all.
Mhm.
You got to remember, PSA has thousands of graders, and they're grading thousands of cards every. They're not really caring about focusing on anything like that. They're just looking at every card independently, giving their educated opinion.
So if you
I
took
think
it to an
Arrow has it.
extreme and said mixing Japanese or something with like a bulletproof 10 rate, mixing it with like a mid-air or a WotC.
That's when it gets a little spicier. Because there is something called bias. I don't think era would matter. No one's going to say, okay, Diamond and Pearl versus whatever, WotC. This really matters. But if you go from the card quality of Japanese, which is distinguishably much better, as opposed to vintage WotC, then yes, that can happen. I still think it's very minimal because they are trying to be as objective as possible with their.
I agree. I agree with that. I'll send. I used to send separate submissions, English, Japanese. Now I'm trying to do. Now I'm trying to do more of a mixture in my submissions. So I will send English, Japanese, WotC, Modern. But I have always followed the put your WotC card, like worst condition to best condition at the end. So WotC cards first, Modern cards in the middle, Modern Japanese cards at the very end. Who knows if that actually does anything? But that's just something that I've always done and I always will do, just in case. Who even knows if they go through the submission in order like that, or do they just kind of shuffle all the cards together before they grade them?
That's a good point because lately they've been returned and out of order.
Yep.
So does it even matter anymore?
And you can't control what's submitted ahead of yours. So every time Nick submits one of his, I make sure that mine gets submitted right before, and I submit Japanese so that it makes all his WotC look extra bad. It's so silly to me. It's funny. It's funny to hear all these different anecdotes and all these different tinfoil hats, and there might be some validity. Like, they're all humans, right? But at the end of the day, like, I know the secret, and I'm not telling. I know exactly how to frame a card to get a 10 every time, but I can't spill those beans here. I mean, that's a Patreon tier that I don't even have. I can't spill those beans.
And just so people realize how absurd that statement was, I sent 2 submissions in the same day. One was for a friend, and one was for me. They went on the same USPS truck out of my hometown. When I looked at the PSA order report, they were 3,000 submissions between the 2 submissions. That's how hard it is to get those to line up. That's how many submissions they're receiving every day, even now.
That's wild.
Right?
Oh.
But yeah, I've graded. I've played around with it a little bit because I've heard so many things. I've graded Japanese at the front of a submission, and I've gotten English 10s behind the Japanese. Again, every era, these companies are consistently inconsistent, and you can't control what they're grading beforehand. You can't control that the guy found out he was getting cheated on the night before. You can't control that the guy got a raise, got promoted. Like it's I mean, I have my own thoughts and lack of like belief in fundamentally these grading companies. Everyone, like, sometimes I think I believe in it like the least out of everyone, and then I hear all these theories that people have, and it's like, man, these people believe in it even less than me. They think they can game it this easily. Like, what are we talking about here?
So is there any method to your submissions, or are they just completely random? English, Japanese, modern WotC.
Oh no, I have an actual system to guarantee 10s for the cards I wanted, and I'm just not going to tell anyone.
Come on, we need to have one serious answer from you tonight.
I don't have like I don't have just I only do it this way. I mix it around. Like, it's the cards go out the way they go out. I did a very high tier one, not a very high tier. I think I did the $75 tier, which sadly doesn't get you, like, years ago, $75 tier, you could grade like a PSA 9 base first Charizard, and that would be, but $75, what's that get you now? Like $1,000 value? I was grading like special delivery Bidoofs. I remember I tanned a special delivery Bidoof in with the same submission that I was tanning Japanese Champions Festivals, as well as an Ultra Ball Champion stamped. So in one submission, I went from like modern Pokemon English to 10-year-old-ish Japanese. Like, I was all over the place, and a lot of them were 10s because they were just 10s. Generally speaking, PSA is going to get you 95% of the time. They're going to get you within ±1. And then sometimes they have very big misses, and yeah, I don't know. It's crazy though. It's crazy the lengths people go and try to talk themselves into having these systems and having these things figured out. And
so in their order tracker, they say they have QA1 and QA2. Do you think they actually look at the card twice?
No, absolutely not.
I don't either.
I don't know if anyone saw it, but did you see Opossum Bud's recent video? I normally don't try to get into like the videos that are all like inherently negative and whatever, but the thumbnail baited me in. It was in my recommended feed, and it was a Persian, Galarian Persian, or one of those Persians. It had a drawing on it, and it was inked with a male organ, I'll say. It was inked with a male organ on its head, and it got through PSA, and it got a PSA 8. So I looked up the cert number. I'm like, is this really real? This is crazy. And the cert was deactivated by PSA. If it, like, in the comments, people weren't sure if it was spoofed. If someone spoofed it and they drew it on the case and they made it look convincing, or if they photoshopped it, PSA would not have deactivated the cert. PSA would have left the cert untouched so that you could see the scan, because it was one of the more modern ones. PSA deactivated the cert. They pulled the scan down because PSA graded a card that was literally inked. Like my Squirtle Squad that I have, that one says Mark on it. So they saw the sunglasses. They got a laugh out of it. They made it PSA 9 marked. But this Persian was graded an 8 straight, no mark, no nothing. And it got through. Supposedly, it got through 2 graders. It got through 2 QAs. It got through the encapsulator, the receiving, the R&D department. Yeah, right. Like, they do not look at cards too closely.
Okay, who has the non-qualifier penis Persian? I want to buy it.
Yeah. I think it was like a graded gem submission, because some people were saying it was fake because it was like a 6 cert or 5 cert or something, which seemed too old. But no, it was a recent return because of the whole crazy though. Yeah, it's some of the things that I've personally seen too. Like I've not sent an ink card and gotten through like that, but I've seen some 10s that were 6s or 7s, and I've seen some, like, you just see crazy things, and it's like there's no way 2 people are looking at this.
Well, what's that? I forget the card. There's some trophy card out there. It's just one example, but there's some trophy card out there that's a 10, and it looks horrendous. I want to say it's like a scroll.
Oh yeah, there's a very bad scroll. It's like a 7 at best.
kind reminder that PSA is the same company that graded the most expensive card in the world. It was Trin.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So that's
Yeah.
fun. Keep in mind, this is the industry leader who we all send cards.
And I see Colt just mentioned the Shadowless Nidoking 10 that Professor Oak Cali he posted on his
that's another one.
Instagram.
Does Mike still have
PSA's
that?
no, he sold it. He sold it through
Did he
a
sell transparently, or did
he sold it on consignment with high quality scans up anyone could see. But yeah, PSA's head grader. PSA's head grader over like $1,000 card. They looked at that Nidoking that was clearly an 8 at best, and they said we uphold the 10 grade. Like that is what we're dealing with in this hobby, in this industry. It's kind of sad, but
Yeah.
I remember that on E4. That was people were pissed that day.
it wasn't even about the
Oh, yeah.
$1,000. It was about the fact that the can of worms that would be opened, if they paid out for that, they would be paying out millions and millions and tens of millions of dollars because the scroll would have came back, sports cards would have came back, like a lot of cards would have come back probably. So the guarantee is just not actually real anymore.
No, absolutely not.
Yeah, Illustrator 10 is a big 10.
Gotta love the
Yes, I
hobby.
agree.
But clout is a hell of a drug.
Wolfhawk1 says, how many times have you heard people say, I just don't get it about Pokemon, but now that a lot of people are getting it, that it's actually gambling?
Is that a question?
I don't know if I understand that question.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a question or a statement, but yeah. How many times have you heard people say, I just don't get it about Pokemon, but now that a lot of people are getting it, that it's actually gambling? I thought that was a question when I started reading it. Maybe it's more of a statement. I don't really know. Going over my head, though.
Speaking of getting it, we don't get it. See what I did there?
It's really not gambling. Life is gambling. You never know what's going to happen. That was the eggplant emoji. Stereotype.
Yeah. Lord Pokesmoke says doubling every week. It's like these TikToks, just make 5% return a day for a year. That's all you need to do. It's easy. Yeah. Oh, Colt said, I guess I'm saying current prices staying stable for a multi-year run. I can't imagine them going any higher than they are now. I could truly see broadly a lot of these Japanese cards double once more, and then the better ones only dropping 20 to 30%, the worst ones dropping 80%. I could see that happening and being like, because what happened with WotC 10 to 20x in 2020, and then a lot of it fell 80 to 90%. But if you 20x and then fall 90%, so you'd still be up. Like say you're at 10, you 20x to 200, and then you fall 90%. Well, now you're at 20 still, so you're still a double. Like there is no card in WotC, I don't think, that is at 2019 and prior prices. So even though we went through the bubble and then the crash, everything's still higher than it was. I could absolutely see these Japanese cards do something like that. Again, I don't know if they'll 2x, 5x again before then, or if today could literally be the peak, and things could be falling from over the next several months, several years, whatever. But so yeah, I could see a scenario like that where there's just a new baseline that's higher than it's ever been. Cause like a lot of these cards are beautiful. A lot of like the Mario Pikachus, things like that, Scream cards, they're actually great cards. But great cards that went from a $10,000 set 2 weeks ago to $20,000 this week, are they going to be $40,000 next week? And I don't know. It's crazy.
It is. Yeah, I can't see this pricing lasting. I I can't see it happening. I do think everything is going to come plummeting back down to Earth at some point, and I think it's going to happen soonish.
It seems like a lot of the buying action is coming from inexperienced, new to market buyers.
Mhm.
I feel like at the first sign of fire, the first sign of trouble, when they see that downslope start to happen, they're going to be the first ones to pay for hand. It's just going to.
Yeah. So Lord Pokesmoke, we got Chris Hansen in the chat. You better watch out on this one. This one is this question is radioactive. Who is your favorite waifu? Dan, no cop outs. Before anyone answers, I will say per Pokemon lore, Lily is 11. So a lot of these air quotes waifus are actually just minors. And
I have a question.
What's your question?
Who's the youngest? That would be my favorite.
Oh, God. We got him. Lock him up. Lock him up. At FBI.
Hope you like
we need help.
Food, Nick.
I was gonna say which waifu is the most age appropriate. I'm going to take the safe answer of an approximately 33-year-old. That looks most like my wife. I mean, come on.
Man. What a cop-out answer.
Nick's I see Lord Pokesmoke says clip that.
Please do not clip that.
Hey, I actually make YouTube content. I'm not trying to get canceled over here. Nick's trying to get canceled from YouTube so that he can just all out on YouTube Live. eBay Live.
Oh man.
Max security.
Lock him up and throw away the key.
Okay, serious answers only.
My serious answer would be Misty. Does Misty count as a waifu?
Misty's like 11 also.
Okay.
Oh, she grew up.
She was 11 25 years ago.
Here's the thing with Misty, though. We started liking her when we were also 11. So you can't say there's any, like, attraction.
There we go.
That makes sense, you know?
That is true.
Being a fan of Misty is rooted in we grew up with her. And we were all the same age. And it was all consensual.
Here we go. I like psychic Pokemon, and I'm gonna say Sabrina. It says she's 21. She's got some cool episodes in the anime. She's got some cool Pokemon. So I'm gonna take a safe and legal answer of Sabrina.
There you go. How old is Cynthia? Because that's my pick, and I really hope she's not.
She is 6.
Cynthia, yeah, she's the Elite Four champion, 6 years old.
Oh, there you go. She's 33. There we go. Age appropriate.
There you go. Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah, cougar.
Mm.
Oh God, we got Colt in here.
I do not think I will add that one to the timestamps. We're gonna go from PSA ordering subs to whatever the next topic is.
Here we go. So we got Colt pumping Zelda as he always is. And Colt in the live chat says, "Great final episode, guys. It's been a fun podcast."
And then his latest content: Rip Dan's recent search history, age of Pokemon waifus.
So Colt says, serious question. Do you think the new Zelda movie is going to impact the Zelda card market, whether it be existing cards or if they release a new set? Pokemon crossover ? Yeah, I think more exposure to an IP, more exposure to a brand. I have a hard time believing it could like hurt anything. It's like a funnel, right? Like we talk about this so many times in the hobby. Not everyone's going to get to trophy cards. Not everyone's going to get to like the vintage stuff. Not everyone's going to get to the mid-era super niche stuff, but some amount will. Some amount that come into ultra modern we'll revisit WotC, we'll revisit like some amount will make it down to the bottom of the funnel, the super niche stuff. So if the Zelda movie absolutely knocks it out of the park and millions and millions and millions of people watch it, not necessarily every one person will have to buy a Zelda card, but some percent of those will. So it'll have some effect. How much? That's where I just have no idea.
Call me stupid, but like, are there really Zelda cards? Because I've never seen one.
There are. Yeah, go check out Peak That Shoe on Instagram. He's probably posted like Skull Kid like 50 times.
It sounds really cool. I've just never seen one.
He's always pumping them.
Okay.
Yeah, no, they are actually pretty cool.
Oh yeah, big fan. Looking at them on eBay, these are dope.
You're probably on Colt's eBay.
He's cornered the market. My man.
Oh boy. But yeah, I agree. I think the more exposure, the better. You could no exposure is bad exposure. Publicity is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's actually the reason the Mario Pikachu promos are going so hard is because of the movie.
I honestly would not be surprised if that was part of it.
You think so?
I would honestly not be surprised. If that was a small part of it, I would not be surprised. I can't see it being the main factor, but I bet there's at least one person who bought it because of the movie.
What did this was a little bit before my time, but what did Detective Pikachu do to the market?
I don't think it did anything because that was a god awful movie.
Oh, it was a
Pokemon
fine
Go.
movie. Come on.
Pokemon Go was a
Detective Pikachu? That movie was terrible.
It was fine. It wasn't like amazing, but I think it was a fine movie. I don't know. My son likes it. I've watched it a few times since.
Completely disagree with this one.
Hey, your heart, you let it out. Nick.
What was that?
If you got hate your heart, you let it out.
I don't think there was much. I don't think there was much going on in the market from the movie. The set was like not anything too crazy. Weird release, weird,
creepy.
Weird product types. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that Charizard is very creepy looking.
Oh, the one from like the Pikachu set, the Detective Pikachu set.
Yeah. Being like the like the real life Pokemon. I'm not a fan.
Yeah, Charizard shouldn't have fur. What's that about?
Oh.
Walrus says you don't like the Matrix.
I've actually never seen The Matrix.
Oh, well,
Nope.
hate to be that guy, but like that.
Good movie. Very good movie.
Pikachu agrees with me. Dan has lost all credibility. I like it. I agree, Peak.
that
How
Charizard's
does everyone else though like the Detective Pikachu movie?
DNA says it's gas.
DNA said that Charizard is creepy looking. Nick 15 minutes after waifu comment.
Oh man. Chat's falling apart. I feel like we're nearing the end. I feel like this is how chat normally goes towards the end of an episode. Let me try to find the next question.
Oh.
I got lost in chat. Here we go. So Zach's Hockey Box says, do you guys think there's a play on the Pokemon Center Pikachu from the Paldea ETB? I didn't know only one of the two promos has the stamp on them. So yeah, for anyone unaware, the ETBs now have a promo in them. So the 001 SVP promo in Japanese is inside of the regular Paldea Evolved ETBs. And then the Pokemon Center Paldea Evolved ETB has a special stamped variant. I've never been huge on variants, but it will be interesting to see what that does. I am a huge fan. Like I really like a lot of the artworks from the recent like non-main sets, like the ones that don't have booster boxes. Like Hidden Fates had a beautiful ETB promo. celebrations. There's a lot of cool ones out there, Champions Path. But this interesting dynamic where they have two variants now, the base one in all the set ETBs, and then the stamped one. It's not for me. I'm not a big fan of variants, but long term, one probably is more exclusive. One bit of data that we're lacking. What is the relative print run? Is the Pokemon Center ETB 10 times less printed? Are there 1 million of the regular ones and 100,000 of the Pokemon Center ones? No idea. And that's probably not even like a static ratio. Probably varies set to set by demand. So I'm not making big plays with that. Nick, are you buying a lot of like the Pokemon Center ETBs? Or are you buying the promo secondhand to like make a play there? I'm not personally.
Me personally, I am not. I wanted to. Someone posted a story on Instagram yesterday though, and I never looked into it. But apparently one of the promos from the Scarlet and Violet ETBs. I forget which one exactly, but it's like $3 for the regular promo, and then like $30 for the Pokemon Center exclusive one. I never verified that. I'm just believing what I heard on the story. But if that's the case, that is wild for the promo to be worth that much more. But I guess it could also make sense because I feel like a lot of people who are buying the Pokemon Center promo or Pokemon Center ETBs are keeping them sealed and not opening them. So I guess there's a lot less supply. So it could be a good play there. Buying the promos, opening them, hoping they're 10s, grading them, and selling them that way. I'm sure there's people already doing that, but just based off of the pricing there, it could definitely be a play.
Is the variant an English exclusive? Because if it is, I think it has a lot going for it.
It's exclusive to the Pokemon Center ETBs,
I don't know if
yeah.
the Scarlet and Violet base ones in Japanese.
The base one, I'm pretty sure, yeah, it's not an exclusive, but the variant might. I could be wrong.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not positive either.
Nico here had a good question.
I actually just got to that one. So Nico says, hey guys, new to the hobby and a friend of mine recommended I watch you all. In your opinion, what's the best way to jump in with a primary goal of flipping as a side hustle? Well, first, thanks for hopping in. Welcome. There's so much you can do. Like, it depends on what part of the market you enjoy most and what part of the market you want to interact with. I think peak liquidity, peak hype, like depth of the market, there are so many plays in ultra modern that I think it's the most accessible because you can go to your LGS, you can go to your local Walmart, Target, and it's there. It's readily available on eBay, TCG Player, in high quality, generally speaking. So I personally, if I were getting back in, and this is what I did back in 2014, I interacted with the new sets. I remember opening up a case of Phantom Forces back in 2014 because it was the newest set at the time. And yeah, I think that's a decent way to hop in, but it's all relative to the amount of capital you have. If you've got $50 that you're bringing in versus $50,000, very different answers of what you can start doing. But yeah, like open some of the recent sets, buy some of the recent singles, get into a little bit of grading, try out PSA, try out CGC, try out BGS. Those are my general quick thoughts on just getting a feel. Make some listings on eBay. Try out the different sales platforms too. Like try joining some Discords, joining some Facebook groups, and just interacting with the community more. And watch PokeFlipz too. We got a nice whole backlog for you.
Nice promotion there. I would say start with what you like. What you're if you've been collecting and you like a certain era, start with that stuff because you obviously know that stuff. So start there. See if you can buy. I've always been one to buy big collections, break them down into individual cards, grade some of them, sell everything as single cards, doing it that way. But yeah, I would start with what you like, what you know, and then start off that way, build that up, and then if you're interested, then branch out into other areas that you want to learn more about. But definitely start off with something that you know and you have a knowledge base of.
Yeah, totally agree with Dan and Nick. Um, highly recommend, just like any other business that you'd want to start or any other industry that you want to get in, immersing yourself in all the different ways that you can. Like before I even moved a card or spent any of my own real money, I spent 6 months studying the market, using all the resources available to me, and just learning, educating. We're lucky now in 2023. There's a resource everywhere you look. You can Google just about anything. And what's beautiful about the Pokemon community is everybody is so accommodating and welcoming that if you ask a question, you're not going to get. So I would go to trade shows. I would go to conventions. I would go on Instagram, Facebook, whatever social media. I would go to E4 is a great platform with kind of knowledgeable podcasts like this. Just look at what's happening now, but also understand what's happened in the past, and then you can make knowledgeable choices based.
I think we're pretty close to the bottom of the chat, and we're getting pretty close to midnight too. So we'll probably try to just catch up with the bottom of the chat and then wrap up there. I'm gonna take this question and answer first, and then I'll get Gem Mint Nick's eBay and Instagram linked again. I'll try to remember to send everyone off with a link to the episode that aired simultaneously with us going live. But Nick Old School was recently on Radar's podcast, so I will try to link that at the end in case anyone wants something else to view afterwards. But Cole Peeked at You had a question. How do you think Magic's Lord of the Rings 1 of 1 and serialized cards in their new set will impact other TCGs, especially Pokemon? Thoughts on doing it as well? What card would you love to see 1 out of 1? No Zard or Pika. They're taking note. We actually talked about, I know you were in fairly late, Cole, but we talked a little bit earlier, or at least I definitely mentioned at one point that I think it's inevitable on a long enough time frame that Pokemon will go to like a collector's variant, a hobby box, retail box variant type thing on a long enough timeline. Sports did it, Magic did it. That's just where things go eventually, I think, if and when they need to reach into their bag of tricks. So long enough timeline, I think it's inevitable. I think it'll happen. What card would I love to see 1 of 1? I think it would be cool to just actually stamp. One thing, having collected like the full art trophy Pikachus, I bought most of them directly from the winner, so I was quite certain of their history, of their validity as being an actual awarded trophy copy. If they started slapping numbers on those and serializing those, it would completely take away the ability for those to be like extra copies, things like that. So I think that would be really cool. I don't know that they ever will. Extra copies are certainly a thing, but yeah, if they would just start serializing or numbering in some way so that you knew that there weren't extra copies floating around of trophy cards, I think that would be cool. And I know that the current trophy card we have is Pikachu, but I mean, do a Quaxley one or something. Do something cool and new. What do you guys think?
I agree with you. I do think it could happen eventually. I don't think Pokemon has any plans of it right now, just because of how hugely successful they are. And I think it would be like a drastically different product. I don't think it would be like a standard set with a 1-of-1 card in there. I think it would have to be like Topps did with Pokemon, or maybe just like a specialty set that doesn't have any playable cards in it, because like I said earlier, Pokemon is primarily a player's Pokemon's primarily focused on the players. They're focusing more on collectors, but it's not as much. So that would be my answer. But and then as far as like 1-of-1, I would go with Squirtle. Squirtle is my 1-of-1. Which, if I haven't mentioned, I do have a 1-of-1 Squirtle, but the Shadowless. Perfect 10. Oh.
Yeah, you guys nailed the first part of the question, so I wouldn't be adding. But for the 1-of-1, some trio would be cool. Like something Grand Party-esque would be really nice. Maybe the 3 Kanto starters, that Squirtle alongside Bulbasaur. Something like that would be really cool.
Yeah, and Colt makes a good point. Magic has literally revitalized their position with this upcoming set. Businesses cannot ignore the hype and impact they've had, especially on pre-order sales. Yeah, this thing is like the talk of the town. We're talking about it 3.5 hours into a Pokemon podcast. It's all over the place. Rudy's view count, and it's for like good reasons. I'm actually gonna I bought Magic 30th, which was the talk of the town for very negative and bad reasons. I'm going to also buy a box of this and chase a $1 million, $2 million bounty card, one of one. So it's being noted by other IPs certainly.
And Nick, you probably didn't watch it, but Dan's not gonna sell the one of one that he pulls with you guys. I'm gonna send it right to Heritage. So
I'm claiming that bounty. I'm keeping Heritage out of it. Sorry.
I wonder if we're gonna get it.
I honestly, I would call you and I would be like, hey, these guys in Spain with the $2 million bounty, they're serious. Can you front me $1.5 million cash and then we'll auction it? Are you that confident that I'll get over 2 million? That's what I would be looking for. And I'm sure you guys wouldn't be that confident.
Dude, I'm the social media guy. They'd be like, leave. Who let this guy in the building? I think what's Cassius Marsh's bounty now? $1 million?
David Adams Card World was at $1 million. I don't know what Cassius Marsh's was.
A silly, just dynamic for trading cards like bounties at $1 million.
I think.
What are the chances it's like some kid who opens it and his parents throw it away at one point?
Not zero.
Yeah,
I can almost see it.
It's very possible that it never surfaces.
Puts it in his bike spokes, makes his bike sound cool.
And
with how many kids we see trying to trade up and try to hustle us at these shows, I guarantee you.
Yeah,
that is true. Kids aren't as naive as like they were back in our day.
Pokemon DNA says, question, do any of you find it interesting how against serialized cards Pokemon collectors are, but at the same time Pokemon has short printed many cards previously and they're widely accepted, such as lottery promos, Japanese legendary present campaign, unlimited Japanese legend cards? I think a very good analogy is like, don't even come into Pokemon, just stay in Magic. And maybe I guess it was price point, yada yada yada, but how against Magic 30th Magic people were, and then how for seemingly people are for like Lord of the Rings, serialized one of one cards and this and that. But I don't know. At the end of the day, it's like people will be outraged when they want to be outraged, and I think when it inevitably comes to Pokemon, maybe 20 years from now still, but I think a lot of people will be unhappy about it. And because there's just a fair bit of entitlement, I think. Everyone thinks they have to be able to afford and own everything. And it is weird when the tagline is gotta catch them all, and then they make it so you can't afford to. I mean, 99% of Pokemon consumers are nowhere near being able to afford everything. I can't remotely afford everything, especially if you're talking about trying to open it yourself and all that. Like, it's definitely crazy. But with that,
but go ahead, Dan.
I was just gonna say, with that, like, that's the final question. We're after midnight now. I linked a little bit ago, and I will add them to the description. Nick's links to his Instagram and eBay. Do you guys have anything else to say in parting? I guess one thing, Nick, we should say is 2 weeks we will do 9 p.m. again. I have a conflict. I'm going to Legoland, and I'm gonna be in Legoland at 1 p.m. at our normal time. So yeah, 2 weeks from today we're gonna do the next PokeFlipz at 9 p.m. Eastern again, or 8:30 p.m. Eastern. I guess whatever we did today.
Yeah, sounds good. And Nick, thanks for coming on. Really do appreciate it. Was fun fun chatting with you.
Thank you for having me, guys. It was a blast.
Yeah, we very much appreciate you coming on. Definitely one of the people, I say it all the time, but every time I go to a Collecticon, there's always so many people that I wish I wish I got to hang out with them more. I wish I got to talk to them more. Nick, you've frequently been one of those people that like I usually see you in passing, stop at your table for a little bit, but you're never within our section, so we're just not hanging out quite as much. And if you do come to Charlotte, if not, we'll have to hang out more in Houston. But if you do come to Charlotte, we'll have to try to hang out more for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
That's what makes the show.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. People definitely make the show. And then just any of you guys want to go check out my podcast with Pokemon Radar, be sure to check that out at some point within whenever you can. I thought it was a pretty good one. Super happy that John Pokemon Radar, I guess, is getting back on YouTube, and hope he continues up with his podcast. So I don't know if mine was quite as good as PokeRev, but I thought it was pretty decent.
So I just relinked Gem Mint's links, and then I also linked the final link that I'll leave you guys with is if you guys want an hour and 20 minutes more of content, if you're not ready for bedtime like we are, go check out Nick's thing. If not, at least click on it, add it to your watch later, watch it tomorrow like I'm going to. We thank you, Nick, for being our guest. We thank everyone, as always, in the live chat. This is so fun and engaging with everyone in the live chat. Really appreciate you guys. And with that, we will catch you all later.